And there we have it. We've got Chris Froome in second place behind the British champion, his teammate Peter Kenya. These look like the legs here. Daniel Tekla-Henlock, and he's been hanging on to the back of this very select chase peloton.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, you've got to tip your hat to him, I think, because yes, he has been sitting at the back end of the main field, but there's a lot of...
Stage 14 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you, and it's a difficult stage to manage. It's definitely not for the sprinters, but Michael Kwiatkowski, all the rumours are that he'll be heading to Team Sky next year. He's here at the Tour de France hunting stage victories. He raced bravely to the top of the Plateau de Bay. He says that if he wants to ride for the general classification in the Tour, which he does at some point in the future, he's going to have a lighter start to the season. He's done a lot of racing already this year. These are the days where Peter Sagan secures the green jersey, and he is odds-on favourite to win that classification for the 4th year running. It's a long way from being done, but he certainly is looking good. Simon Yates, number 109, in the break, the chasers for the Orica Green Edge squad. In what was the original breakaway of the day, Orica Green Edge, they had 2 riders in the move. Peter Winning was also there. Surely no one challenges Peter Sagan for the points here as he just looks across the shoulder, assessing. The body language tells the story for Peter Sagan. Don't you dare challenge. Ruben Platzer, who sits behind him, is one of the most experienced men in the break. Not really challenging for the sprint points there of Peter Sagan. So he now moves to a lead in the race for the green jersey of 34 points over Andre Greipel. This is the chasing group. Jeremy Waugh leads them through, along with Jan Bakelants from AG Tour Le Mondial. A team that also has 2 riders in that group, the other one being Romain Bardet. Peter Sagan yesterday got his 4th second place finish. That's the 3rd year in a row that Peter Sagan has had 4 second place finishes in stages of the Tour de France. Throughout his 4 appearances at the Tour, he's finished in 2nd place no less than 15 times. He's keeping some good company though. Other riders to have so many 2nd place finishes. Back in 1999, Alex Zula finished 2nd 5 times. The great Sean Kelly, the Irishman, he finished 2nd 5 times in stages of the Tour de France twice, in 1985 and 1982. But the record, that belongs to Charlie Palliser. Back in 1930, Charlie finished 2nd in 7 stages of the Tour de France. But don't feel sorry for him. He also won 8 stages. Inside the 100 kilometre to go mark, that's for the leading group, but back in the main peloton, they're around about 104 kilometres to go. They're at 7 minutes and 30 seconds behind the leaders, which looks as if that group is about to swell from 7 to 20, with a chasing group of 13 about to close it down.
Doesn't look too slick to me,
Well, this spans some 2.4 kilometres. It's 32 metres wide, and the highest point underneath it, you can actually fit the Eiffel Tower underneath. It was opened on the 16th of December 2004 by President Jacques Chirac. Ruben Platzer, he wants to keep the momentum going out the front, understandably so. One of the most experienced riders in this group. He has finished 10th in the past in the Tour de France, so he's a strong climber. He was brought onto the Lampre team to support Rui Costa, the former world champion. Unfortunately, Rui Costa is headed home, not because of a crash, but simply because of illness. And there's another look at the bridge. It is enormous, isn't it? The 2nd highest bridge in the world, behind the Royal Gorge Bridge in Colorado. As I mentioned before, I've had the privilege of driving across this a few times. Stunning views from the top as you look out across the massive Centrale. Across the past few stages, we've seen extreme weather conditions. The last stage in the Pyrenees to the top of the Plateau de Bay, it started at 40 degrees, it finished at 14 degrees. Yesterday was another day with blistering temperatures. Richie Porter said that, well, for Chris Froome, it's not a problem. In fact, he's loving the heat. Let's keep in mind that he actually grew up in Kenya. Richie declared yesterday is beer weather, but he also reminded everybody that the last time he drank a beer was on the 23rd of May, the day that he abandoned the Giro d'Italia. And yesterday it was all about keeping the fluids up. He consumed some 14 bidons or water bottles throughout yesterday's stage. There's the results from the intermediate sprint. The only one that really matters, though, is the person that went across the line in first place, and that is Peter Sagan. Yesterday's stage winner, Greg Van Avermaet, he's had a lot of near misses as well. He was asked whether he can provide any advice for Peter Sagan afterwards, and he said certainly not. No advice for Peter Sagan. To beat a guy of that quality is one hell of a feat in my career. It's given him a lot of confidence for the future. Van Avermaet said that yesterday was a win that he needed. He's got himself in the breakaway once again today. Making their way through the town of Millau. A town that in the past has been famous for its glove making. A lot of work in the skin trade as well. As we look down upon the old church in the centre of the town, which was first built in the 12th century. But the tower that you can see, that was struck by lightning on the 29th of July in 1811, since has been reconstructed, as we can see that as well. Well, the weather conditions for now at least are okay. Racing through the massive Central, and it's an area that a lot of the riders will know reasonably well as a result of having ridden Paris-Nice, a race at the start of the season that so often finishes at the top of today's last climb to Mende. The Church of Our Lady, another church that dates back to the 12th century. It was destroyed in the 16th century but rebuilt 100 years later, thanks to a levee that was put on those that were trying to cross the Tan River that they're riding alongside. So that contributed to being able to rebuild that church. We return to the breakaway with Peter Sagan, another successful day. More points in the race for the green jersey. He's still only 25 years of age, he's in his 4th Tour de France, and he's on target to win the green jersey for the 4th time. Good to see Kundecourt in the breakaway, number 84 from the giant Alpecin team. If he was to take his jersey off, you'd see a massive tattoo in the centre of his back of the gladiator. Tattoo that was done by Simple Syme in St Kilda in the suburbs of Melbourne. Still Ian Stannard sitting at the front, just setting a reasonably comfortable tempo, certainly by his standards. This is Christian Corrin leading them through for the Candel Garmin team. Pantano is in there from IM Cycling. One of the more intriguing results for Gelson Pantano was at the Tour de France 2 years ago now it was, when he was riding for the Columbia team. He finished in 3rd place on a stage, but the rider that was just in front of him, 2 seconds in front of him, was Carlos Betancourt. Carlos Betancourt finished in 2nd position. It was into Florence. He went across the line with his arms up in the air, celebrating his win, punching the air. Pantano came up alongside him. Sorry, Carlos. A little bit further up the road, to the tune of 44 seconds. Maxim Belkov was actually the winner of the stage. We saw a similar incident this year's at Giro d'Italia with Simon Clark, who went across the line in 2nd position, thought he collected the win, but Davide Formolo was just a little bit further up the road. And the rider that was behind Simon Clark in 3rd position tapped him on the back and said, sorry Simon, not quite. But Clark did get himself the leader's jersey, the Maglia Rosa. This is a bridge that construction started on this bridge back in 1818. It took 3 years to be able to make it. The Rouge Bridge. if they do reach their full potential, they will not have to worry about money at all. Cheeky wink from the flower pot. Viva La Tour. Luke Rowe at the front for Team Sky. Well, the second hour of racing was certainly quick, with an average speed of almost 48 kilometres per hour, but most of that was downhill. It was the first hour that was really the most impressive, of 41.5 k's an hour, with most of it being uphill. This is Louis Angel Mate, who we're getting to see for the first time. He has been stuck in the middle for the last 20 kilometres or so. He tried to bridge across to the leaders, but on his own, he was against the numbers and didn't quite have the legs. Well, it's a relatively flat run now before they get through to the next climb of the day. They've got a Category 2 climb is their next major challenge. Up until that point, I think it'll be status quo back in the main peloton. And that next climb that we've got, it doesn't start until around about 40 kilometres remaining in the stage. So we'll see the main peloton just continue in this sort of pattern. Team Sky at the front over the next 40 k's. Ian Stannard, Luke Rowe, the two riders that we'll see a lot of at the front throughout those next 40 kilometres. And the main task of the day will be staying hydrated. 30 degrees at the moment where they are. It's starting to cool here at the finish line as the cloud continues to roll in. To stage wins at the Tour. He has won a stage at the Criterium of Dauphiné, one of his most significant results. But his role today won't be hunting for a stage win for himself. It will be to ensure that this breakaway has got as big an advantage as possible as they head into the last 40 kilometres and the rolling climbs, well, rolling is probably a little bit unfair, the nasty climbs through to the finish line in Mende. And this little statue, which a lot of work has been done on this one to save it, with the local community chipping in since 1970, the condition as they possibly can. And the beautiful cliffs as well, Mother Nature at her very best. And the scenery is only going to get better throughout the day, and then over the next few days as well as we head towards the Alps. Richie Porte is also looking forward to the Alps. He says that the Alpine climbs suit him a little bit better than the Pyrenees, which we've just been through over the past couple of stages. As for a few of the other Australians in the race, we look to Michael Matthews, who is no longer in last position overall, and he'll be pleased with that. And he said he definitely hasn't enjoyed sitting in last place and getting dropped so often. He's happy to start to fight for stage victories. As for that prize of the Lanterne Rouge, it has been won by an Australian in the past, the last place finisher in the Tour de France. And it was Richard Fatty Lamb who collected the Lanterne Rouge back in 1931 on the team that was led to the Tour de France by Sir Hubert Opperman, who finished 12th that year at the Tour. And more riders trying to scurry back across. This is Barkelant's number 13, a stage winner and a holder of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France in 2013. Number 13 isn't such bad luck for him. Stephen Cummings for the MTM Quebecer squad. Number 53 is Jonathan Castro-Vejo. He hasn't done any of the pacemaking so far. He's just been watching and waiting patiently. If this group does survive, number 118 is going to be a tough man to beat. That is Rigoberto Urán. And 3 stage wins already for edX Quickstep. Stage win for Tony Martin, that was across the Pavé. And then the day that Tony Martin crashed out and broke his collarbone, when we saw his teammate Zenit Stibar collect the stage victory. And Mark Cavendish has also had a win for that team. Another chance to have a look at the remains of this stunning chateau, or what's left of it anyway. As we pan down across the valley, racing alongside the river town. Back down with the peloton. The boys in red from BMC. And watching closely above. Got the bird's eye view, literally. A little bit restricted with some of the aerial shots throughout today's stage. As we go over one of the national parks, the helicopter has to be at an altitude of at least 300 metres above the highest point. So we might struggle to get some of the pristine views that we often get in this region. Well, Poles coming forward, the Dutchman having the conversation with Ian Stannard. What's he got for him? Another water bottle.
As we wander around the department of the Aviron here, the peloton, it was a tough start today and they've been running at a very fast speed. Average at the moment still 45 kilometres an hour. That's a kilometre an hour quicker than they were expected to reach the finish today. And because of it, we've had riders behind. They've regrouped, but what is more important, 20 riders have built up 7 minutes.
Well, just a quick look down here at the Gorges du Tarn, the Tarn Gorges. They are quite magnificent looking down here, but for environmental reasons, today we're only allowed to fly 300 meters above the gorges of the Tarn, which makes us around about 900 meters above the level of the gorges right in the bottom, and that's why we're flying so high. Anyway, you can still see just how magnificent they are. They really are incredible. They're made up of certain or different cirques, as they call the sector de Pougnan-Doir. The area is an incredible area of natural beauty between the Causes de Mérian and the Causes de Sauveterre in the department of the Aveyron, but mainly the majority of the Gorges Tarn are in the Lozère. Gorges are very well known for the cave-dwelling fauna, and there's some extremely rare bats in this area, as one of them is known as the greater mouse-eared bat and the horseshoe bat, and a number of species of vultures, which we might have spotted just a little bit earlier on. Of course, tourist attractions include hiking, canoe kayaking, potholing, and of course climbing. Climbing a little bit difficult though, because it is basically a limestone structure. Team Sky, Ian Stannard is the big man on the front doing the majority of the pacing. They've just got to get this stage out of the way now. They won't get any help, I don't think, from anyone else in the race at the moment, but they do need to pay attention, because this last climb of the day up to the aerodrome outside of Normand is a very difficult climb. It's only about 2 kilometers in length, but it's a very nasty ascent with the gradients going up as high as 10%.
So the news today.
Itself, you think somebody from this group will win the stage?
Yeah,
I think
that's the 2027 Tour de France.
I think any team with ambitions for the final of the race who want to go and close a 5 to 7 minute gap over that road, they're going to have trouble. But
next year,
I think
July,
closing the gap would be it would need a manoeuvre from a major team to close that kind of gap.
Or if it's raining.
6:34 as the peloton now heads into Les Vignes, the first town in the Lozère for the peloton.
Is that already exciting?
Well, it's going to be a tough day for everyone when you see the main field along these this kind of a road is called a false flat, because although on the race profile, if you have a look at it, it doesn't look really very much as if it's going uphill. But I can tell you from once they went through Milo, they were getting higher and higher into the gorges of the Tarn. And it really makes it very difficult to just try and hang on in the main field, especially when you've got a big beast of a man like Ian Stannard sitting on the front, tapping out that tempo. All that he's thinking about now, as Stannard on the front here, is just making sure that he keeps the tempo nice and high. He's not really trying to chase these riders down, but the fact of the matter is that he's doing such an incredible job of pacemaking. He's eating into the advantage, which was starting to creep up to over 8 minutes.
It's uncanny the way the race leaders have got their teams all around them, and in exactly the order they sit in the overalls. You've got yellow jersey Sky at the front, the second team with TJ Vanguard and his team BMC, and the third team is the dark blue jersey of Movistar, who have Quintana in third place. So they're all organised should anybody attack.
Just behind them, Phil, you've got the yellow jerseys of Tinkoff Saxo, who are not far away either, looking after Alberto Contador, who is currently hovering 1 second behind Geraint Thomas in the overall standings.
And he was second when we finished here 5 years ago, so he knows the approach to the line, Contador.
He's also won up here on 2 occasions in races like Paris, which come very early on in the year, so I'm sure he would like to have had a crack at this, but I think he over-assumed on his possibilities the last time the Tour de France came up here with Perito Rodriguez, because Rodriguez was sitting on his wheel. Contador started to lead out the sprint, and Rodriguez just came past him on the line.
It's definitely been closed since, so...
Well, the passage of the peloton of the Tour de France, and everybody down there can then resume their holidays down here in the Tarn Gorges. But right now, they're enjoying the passage of the Tour. 6:25, it's not a done deal now. It looked as though it was going to run away, but then they started to peg it once it hit the 7-minute mark. And just at this moment in time, they're actually beginning to close in. We're still on, as Paul has called it, a false flat. It's a steady uphill from about 370 meters. We climb steadily to 476 now before we start the actual climb to over 1,000 meters of the next climb of the day, the Côte de Sauveterre.
It really is one of the beautiful parts of France, that these gorges have a worldwide reputation as being a real great venue, not only for nature walking, but also for any kind of outdoor activity. And look at the river down there. There's a number of points here where it is very, very interesting for canoe kayaking.
It depends on how much effort I put into
Actually, the river down here at times disappears under the stones by some feet that have tumbled down over the years. Then it pops up again. That's the River Tarn for you. Still looking at the time gap, staying pretty steady just for the moment, as we're now seeing these 20 men. They came together, they split up, they fought back into a group, and they seem to have settled down now. And still Stanlard not actually chasing them down, but holding them, keeping them in range, because one man in there, when we go into the Alps, seems to be recovering, so they won't give him too much freedom. Romain Bardet, the Frenchman, 17 minutes down at the start of the day, but he's shown the last 2 days in the Pyrenees he was recovering from all his problems, and he's in the breakaway, and if he takes a chunk of 6 minutes, then that could be worrying.
Well, that was him just there having a quick chat with his teammate. He wears number 12. He was talking to his teammate Jan Bakelants. Now, Bakelants finished 3rd on yesterday's stage, but Bardet is a very good climber, so they've got a very good advantage here tactically with 2 of their best climbers in this breakaway. But the man who would like to survive on the slopes of this final climber, there would be that man there in the green jersey, leader of the Skoda sprint competition, and that, of course, is Peter Sagan, who is really looking very, very good. It's amazing how people are very quick to criticize this man who's finished in the 2nd position at the Tour de France so far in 4 times.
.626, 58.8 kilometers still to go. Movistar with one rider, it's Castroviejo, who's up here. Are doing a good march too, and running a real good chance of increasing their lead in the team competition, which they took away from Sky in the Pyrenees. FDJ, they've got 3 riders here, but they've lost a lot of time in the team, so they won't be worrying about them.
I think that's going to be a big battle between Movistar and Sky when we get into the Alps. As we can see, we're just going further and further into the heart of the national park of the Cévennes, but if you ever come to visit Mons, it's a very difficult place to get into and to get out of, because there are not very many major roads into this part of France, but it is really a most magnificent venue to come for a touristic visit.
Well, it's such a beautiful untouched part of France. I'm very pleased to see they haven't managed to build any main roads in and out, because it would ruin the countryside for sure. 6:26 as they race down the gorges of Tarn.
So the main road, the main field there here, probably very much enjoying it. At least if they can comfortably sit in the train that's being set there by Team Sky at the front end of this main field, I would think they would be quite happy to try and enjoy the view of this magnificent backdrop of Les Gorges du Tarn as we move into the French call a lot of these cliffs in this area un cirque, which is a very steep cliff that can drop down between 600 and 900 meters, and that's very how deep some of these cliff faces are as they drop down into the Tarn, down into the valley below. The Tarn Gorges, they really are a beautiful platform to look down. And of course, just as a reminder that you can do canoe kayak there, well, they've made a bicycle to welcome the passage of the Tour de France into this region. Just having a quick look in the early part of this race, it was IAM Cycling who were chasing down the group.
Up on the finishing line, it's become rather overcast. They have promised there could be rain towards the end of the day of racing, and we're finishing on a wide open airfield after the long climb up to the line, which is actually quite a brute.
Well, it's a beast of a climb, I'd have to say, Phil. It's around about 3.5 kilometers long, 10% in the steepest part. But once you actually get up to the aerodrome...
Oh dear, take a look at that, Paul.
Oh, he's fine. I think they had that calculated to absolute perfection there. I certainly... One of the things in my life I've never really been too keen to try.
And now, what goes up goes down. No thanks.
But just coming back to the climb, Phil, down towards the end, I have to say that it's a really nasty climb. The measured part of the climb is 2 kilometers long, and it's around about 10%.
They're more interested in our helicopter than they are about the man they just chucked off the cliff. But he's right above the River Tarn as we now go right into the throat of the gorges here. One of the most stunning areas of France. This very different to the Pyrenees where we left. You can get down to the Pyrenees in an easy half-day's drive from where we are, but we're heading across towards the Alps now.
There's still Steve Cummings of, still Ian Stannard on the front for Team Sky doing that pacemaking, and what a job he's doing. In fact, he's reduced that advantage by a couple of minutes, down to 6 minutes and 6 seconds. This leading group, they're going to have to start now thinking about how they're going to get themselves a victory on the stage this afternoon. Number 82 is Warren Barguil. He's trying to ride himself back into the main field. He's a guy who I think we'll see ride well in the overall standings. He's currently sitting in 11th place at 9:53 down. And as you can see by his arm there, one of the many riders who've had an accident in the Tour, but he's bounced back, and I think we can see him go out aggressively into the Alps in a couple of days' time.
He is in the back bunch, by the way, as we switched up to the breakaway here to see the other Frenchman, Romain Bardet and Thibaut Pinot, who were thought to be real challengers in the Tour this year. Hasn't been the way. They've had a lot of bad luck, and Bardet, number 13, his numbers alternating, is now looking as though he's finding form. Got 17 minutes, by far the best man in this breakaway at the moment, and gaining time. But the gap is coming down reasonably quickly now. 6 minutes.
Which is 46% more than the same time last year, where I had climbed.
It really is an incredible place to go for a ride.
794 meters.
Just having a quick look down there.
Same time frame.
And that is the rather beautiful castle of Caz. This castle, built in the Renaissance style on the banks of the River Tarn, dates back to 1490, although there have been certain additions onto that castle in 1630 and 37. Although dramatically restored in the 19th and 20th centuries, it was during the French Revolution. Used as a prison. Nowadays it's a luxury hotel.
Oh, hang on, 1 second, got that wrong, no.
And it's at the bottom of one of the steep cliffs, a cliff
this
called the
Siècle
de
46 hours
Pugna
and 17 minutes cycling. That's 46 hours and 17 minutes compared to the same time frame last year.
Well, just looking at Ian Stannard is doing quite an amazing job here for the team. He's got it locked in at the 6.5 minute mark now. 45 seconds there once again is that magnificent backdrop of the castle of La Caz. Really is beautiful. It's an idyllic setting. In fact, it's got a covered ceiling which has been painted with the portraits of 8 women from the Milan family, and who are the owners of the castle historically, as we make our way deeper into these gorges.
Just so I don't burn out.
As we come back to look at the main field here on stage 14, what an amazing backdrop we've had here throughout the course of today's stage. Going deep into the valleys and the gorges of the River Tarn. The backdrops of the Cevennes National Park, which is a beautiful national park in the early part of this stage, and the riders going deeper and deeper into Les Gorges du Tarn. Magnificent backdrop, beautiful part of France, which has hardly been touched at all. Very, very untouched. Brilliant environmental region, as we see now. Team Sky doing a brilliant job of work on the front of this main field, and Ian Stannard is the man who has been called up by the team to do the majority of this pacemaking. He's got the breakaway group of 20 riders locked in at 6.5 minutes, but beginning to loom on the horizon now is the next climb of the day. It's a second category climb, the Côte de Sauveterre. It's a pretty difficult climb too. And of course François Hollande, the President of France, are having a chat there with Christian Prudhomme, the organizer of the Tour de France. He's come in to follow this stage on the way up to Mende. Just trying to listen in there and see if pick up a few tidbits on the French economy and global economy, and of course probably one or two discussions going on there with the President of France on the future of the Tour.
Yes, and the price of petrol when you follow a bike race, who knows? 6 minutes 32 seconds is the gap. We had the Prime Minister the other day. Now François Hollande has joined the race, or will do as soon as it comes up alongside the team car there, the race director Christian Prudhomme. 6 minutes 32 seconds. The breakaway here still driving on, and they're holding again the distance. So we might well still be treated to two races, one for the stage win, and then the attacking of each other on the last climb to gain time on the hill.
Yeah, well, Phil, this final climb of the day is just so difficult that even though the overall contenders are a long way down on the road, they're well ahead of all of those riders in the actual overall race. They have to be attentive on this Côte de la Croix-Neuve, as it's called. It's a climb of about 3 kilometers in length. 10% the gradient, and it's pretty much 10% the whole of the way up. But it's also important to be well positioned, because as you come through Mende, it's rather a small town. It's an old town which has got medieval origins. You have to be well placed as you take the right hand bend into the start of the climb, because if you take that bend in 25th or 30th position, the road is so narrow it's actually very difficult to move up to the front of the peloton.
And they're going through this valley. It's an incredibly high speed, with an average speed for the race so far today of 44.1. We're still ahead of the fastest, only just the fastest expected time of arrival today. So they've not been taking it easy at all. Tomorrow we continue our journey and progression towards the Alps as we go to Valence. 42.5 kilometers left to ride. At the current speed, it's probably just over an hour of racing, because they will slow down on the climbs.
Well, they've got 3 serious climbs on the day ahead of the riders: the Côte de Sauveterre, the Côte de Chabris, which I thought was rather a difficult climb, although I suppose it is a good thing François Hollande has probably come down to the Tour de France today to make sure that all the roads have been resurfaced for the Tour, because certainly that 4th category climb, the Côte de Chabris, had a very nice surface on it. But I thought the descent away from it down into the outskirts of Mende was a little bit tricky, with quite a bit of traffic furniture there.
Well, Steve Morabito crashed, has now been confirmed, has broken his collarbone earlier.
Yeah, that was one of the nasty crashes early on. In fact, we're getting a press release through from Team Giant Alpecin. The abandon of Ramon Sinkeldam, the Dutch rider, on their squad was because of stomach problems. Something that happens a lot to riders during hot stages in the Tour de France, because you take on board so much liquid that very often that you can develop some kind of a stomach complaint, and that is what has been reported to have happened to Sinkeldam. So there's another team now down to just 7 riders. Beautiful chance there as they go through the small town. That's the main field, going through the small town of Saint-Chély, and that's a beautiful one-arched bridge just across there, which dates back to the 19th century. Only allows 1 vehicle at a time, or 1 vehicle wide, to pass it. Now back with the leading group as they come around this corner, just 20 riders, and there's a lot of work. Team FDJ have done a good job here as well, because Team FDJ have managed to put 3 riders into this leading group, and that will put a bit of pressure, I would think, onto the shoulders of Thibaut Pinot. Pinot's a long way down, not riding the race that he rode last year, but he'd love to get a win.
Well, this is it, Paul. The next check, they've got across, so we call them the flatlands, although they weren't completely flat. They're now on the hills that take us up to the finishing line. This first one, 9 kilometers long, and it's got a second category tag.
Yes, I think it's a very difficult climb. It's a bit tricky once you get over the top, but we'll have a chance to see if Team FDJ are doing all of the pacemaking for their man Thibaut Pinot. Pinot is a long way down in the overall standing this year, but to try and, as the French say, save his Tour de France, a stage victory today could be very important. And because this is a tough climb, I think they will try and make it as hard as possible to get rid of some of the passengers from this leading group.
I think the hill will be hard enough to split the group. Peter Sagan in the green jersey will try to hang on in there. It's a big moment for him to gain points at the finish for that green jersey, but we'll see. Thibaut Pinot did say as long ago as 5 or 6 days ago he had no chance now of winning the Tour de France after his bad luck at the opening week. He would look one day for a winning breakaway, and this has got to be his best chance.
Yep, 8.5 kilometers to go to the summit. Thibaut Pinot, Phil, the guy who finished in 3rd place overall last year, had a pretty disastrous opening week of the Tour de France. He's now 35 minutes down, but as far as the French are concerned, if he can win a stage, it's almost as good as finishing 19th or 20th in the overall standings. That could be even more important to him. And this is a stage that has a great cachet to it because of the fact that it's seen riders like Alberto Contador win here in the past in races like Paris-Nice. It's seen Joaquim Rodriguez win here, and so obviously I think everybody would like to try and win. I suppose the most important victory here was on the 14th of July back in 1995 when Laurent Jalabert was the winner. And if my memory serves me correctly, Phil, on that occasion Laurent Jalabert was wearing the green jersey as leader of the points competition.
I do believe you're right. I'm certain you're right, yeah. He was one of the few points riders who also was a king of the mountains in the Tour de France. He was an unusual sprinter, Laurent Jalabert. He works here now on the Tour de France, a TV commentator. 6:09 the gap. It's come back pretty rapidly because the leaders are now climbing and the peloton is still getting ready to start that climb. You've been in many breakaway groups like this in your 17 rides around France. What would you be thinking right now?
Well, the moment where they are now, 25 miles to go, 45 kilometers to go, it's all about efficiency. You know, for example, I would pick the tallest rider in the peloton, make sure I sit behind him so I get just a little bit more of a draft than other people. You know, we think about rehydrating, don't forget to eat. Spin your legs, don't push too much gears. You try to be as efficient as you can. And then you're just going to launch one big vicious attack in the end, trying to break the group apart. Because the non-climbers in this group, they definitely need to come to that last climb with a minute ahead of Thibaut or Romain Bardet, because none can climb better than them too. So they got to split the group up before.
Yeah, but Jensy, that must have been a massive problem for you when you were racing, because you were such a big bike rider. Everybody wanted to sit behind you.
That is true, but believe it or not, I was actually pretty aero on my bike. I had a pretty low position, so I could go down pretty low and pretty aero. I remember in team time trials, a lot of riders said, no, I don't want to be behind Jens. He's not good at for shelter. So I was pretty okay.
Moment we're hearing of a crash in the main field. Somebody's gone down.
Laurens ten Dam.
And Laurens ten Dam, we believe it is, as we watch the riders go past the president of France. And then he'll be in that car, I am sure. Now, at the front of the moment, it's Ledagno who's making the move at the front. As the president now said, I've got to rush, I've got to follow a bike race. I can't find the driver, though.
It's almost as if the teams have been given the right to sit in their positions in the overall standings in the main field.
Well, it's showing that, in fact, the peloton is now travelling quicker as they're guided up here by Richie Porte on the breakaway. Ledagno is the leader at the front of the breakaway.
Now, I think the reason for that, which is why they've brought Richie Porte to the front end of the peloton now, Phil, is to just notch up the pace a little bit to make it uncomfortable, if you like, in the main field, to discourage anybody from the other teams of thinking, right, here's a good chance to launch a counter move. And if you make it that little bit uncomfortable, everyone says, well, I think I'll just stay here. I'll look for a little bit more shelter from the wind, and I'll try and find the sweet spot in the peloton where I can just get dragged along.
Sepp van Mark, the rider at the back, we saw on that long breakaway in the Pyrenees. I think he's paid the price the last couple of days. He's really been hanging on at the back of the race. And those bluish jerseys there of the last year's winner, and you can just see him in the white helmet there, that red, white and green band, the champion of Italy and last year's tour winner Nibali. They're all poised just in case something happens. TJ Van Garden's team are right there as well.
Well, TJ Van Garden's team have been absolutely phenomenal since the start in supporting the American. He came here initially, Phil, to go better than his 5th place overall in the tour that he's had on 2 occasions. He's also been the winner of the white jersey Best Young Rider competition. Here, he's always said that he's thinking about a podium position. He's currently there. This is the winner of yesterday's stage, teammate of TJ Van Garden, Greg van Avermaet. And who knows, Phil, with the victory that he got yesterday, he might be starting to nurture thoughts of 2 wins back-to-back.
Well, I don't think this course is too hard for him, but how much did he take out of himself yesterday? He made a long sprint and had to hang on from that late challenge from Peter Sagan.
I would like to find different stages, not only flat stages, for the sprinters to win. I also like arrivals for the punchers. We need to change something each day, so we don't have the same scenario and the same winners each day, because the world is like this now.
There's the steepest section of the course, and he kicks again. Aconso's trying to match him. Rodriguez is up there as well.
It's an extreme effort for 2 or 3 minutes. It's too hard for the sprinters, but it's too explosive for the pure climbers, but it's perfect for me. On these finishing ramps, it's important to ride in the right position. You need to be in the first 15 riders. Anything further back, and it's impossible. If we're too far behind, if we're too far ahead, if we wait for too long, the small things can make a big difference. It's like the sprinters, you need a little bit of luck too, even though the winner is often the best.
Richie Porte sitting on the front there. He's giving Ian Stannard, who's done a bunch of pacemaking so far, a little bit of a rest and respite. So you can see now moving up alongside BMC Racing there on the inside in the red and black jerseys. It's the turquoise jerseys of Astana. They are pacing their man Vincenzo Nibali to the front end of the peloton. He's followed there by Jakob Fuglsang. Nibali sits well up in the overall standings. He's in 9th place. Fuglsang had a little bit of a difficult day through the mountains. He's in 18th place overall. He's 25 minutes back now. Now, there's a little bit of damage being done at the back of this group. On the front by Richie Porte. Andre Greipel not enjoying this nasty little climb here. Another rider starting to slip away is the Katusha rider, and that is Alexander Kristoff. So the sprinters, Phil, not enjoying the pace being set by the teams of the overall contenders.
These aren't the Pyrenees, they aren't the Alps, but they are viciously hard climbs in this area of the department. But these climbs are really hard, Paul. And we're looking here as a 9 kilometer.
Phil, it's a beautiful place. But then these guys are going up this, because this is full on, this is full gas. These guys are going up. See, you can see the work that's being done by Team Sky. It's just to discourage any of the other teams from making a move. It's not full on, but I would say they're riding at about 80 to 85% of their maximum, and everyone else is saying, well, this is quite hard today, especially after the day that we rode yesterday, and it's reflected with the speed, just over 12.5 miles an hour, 21 kilometers an hour being done by Richie Porte.
Yeah, we've gone inside 6 minutes now, a gap of 5 minutes 50 as we continue up this quite a long climb here to the summit. Steve Cummins is the rider with 212 on his back, British rider on the MTN Quebecer team. Race clear for Thibaut Pinot, the 4th man in line there.
Yep, and that's the view of this climb. And by the way, rather interesting, the Cause de Sauveterre, that means it's taken from the word terre sauve, or safe ground. That was created by the monastery of Saint Enimia way back in the 13th century. At the top of this area, by the way, there's 60 hectares of sheep farming. 5 kilometers to go to the summit. Moving up as well, the riders from Europe car. The rider in the white sunglasses in second position there is Pierre Roland. He's also lost a fair bit of time in the overall stand. Oh, you can see the damage that's now starting to get done. Big old Marcel Seberg slipping away. I can also spot Edvald Bosenhagen, the Norwegian national champion, and that's all because of the work being done by Team Sky and the majority of the work being done by Richie Port. So some big names starting to slip away. Edvald Bosenhagen not enjoying the pressure. He's actually, I spoke to his team manager this morning, Dougie Ryder from South Africa. He said that a big Norwegian like Edvald Bosenhagen has not enjoyed the hot conditions of the last 2 or 3 days.
Heading up towards the summit now, as we still see FDJ set the pace at the front. Cavendish does have a teammate in this leading group, Rigoberto Urán. But his team manager said he's not sure how well he's going. He's had 2 very bad days so far in the Tour de France. But he may get inspired by the climb today. He's the light blue jersey with the white top there halfway up the line. There is Greg van Avermaet winning yesterday. And by the way, Paul, his wife is pregnant and they're not sure when the birth date is. If he wins 2 stages in a row, it could be imminent.
Well, he's been given permission by the team to leave if the birth is going to be imminent, but at the moment I think the way he's riding, he will take every day as it comes. Interesting though that the first and second place riders on yesterday's stage are in the breakaway on a day which theoretically doesn't suit their abilities, because they're the men for the short, sharp explosions. But this final climb of the day, I just feel that Van Avermaet and Peter Sagan, as they get closer to the finish, must be seriously starting to nurture the hopes of a little bit of a win.
Well, we're going up to the summit, and again nobody's challenged. The rider who set the pace all the way up, they're giving him the couple of points over the top. It's a second category climb. First 4 riders only score points there. None affects the King of the Mountains leaderboard at the minute. Sagan, though, is safely with them over that one. Well, looking here now at a little bit of a move forward by Le Danu, went over the top in first place. He's continuing to press on. The boys behind, Grifko is the first man, followed by Bob Jongels in the back group. Here's the peloton over the top now. The boys in black won't be aware of quite what has happened up at the front just for the moment.
Well, the big question now, Phil, is just keep a close eye on the colour of Alberto Contador's bike in the main field as we go back to Michel Golas on the front here for Ethics Quickstep, because I noticed the bike is still on the car of the Tinkoff Saxo car of Alberto Contador, and rumour is that he's going to try and change to a lighter bike for the final climb of the day. He's obviously looking for a few seconds here and there.
Well, that's interesting. There is a weight limit on how light a bike can be, by the way, so all these bikes will have been weighed. As we're watching the peloton still concentrate, they know that their day is far from done. They still are going to attack each other, but when we get to that final climb, Golas is trying to loosen up the chase, make them chase and try and set it up for Alberto Urán to go on the last climb.
There's TJ Van Garderen in the BMC, and in fact he's wearing an aerodynamic skin suit today. He's not wearing the normal shorts and jersey. Obviously he's looking for every little bit of an advantage he can find on today's stage. He's done so well throughout the whole of the opening days of the Tour de France to stay in second place in the overall standings, but he's only got a 17-second advantage over Nairo Quintana. That's why, even though these guys in the main field behind Phil are not racing for the stage victory, they're still racing for time, they're still racing for position on today's stage.
Well, I'm hearing that Contador has fitted lighter tyres on that bike that's on top of the team car, and if he feels the conditions are worth changing, but you know, that might be a bad gamble because the road surface is not good, and well, lighter tyres are more prone to explode. 5:22.
Well, we'll have to keep a close eye on that as we go over the top of this second category climb. They do drop down a fraction now as they move away from that fourth category climb and they start to head into the small town of Barjac. There's a little bit of flat along a valley road. The risk that he would take if he does change across to that bike that I've seen on the back of his team car there is that he might not get to the front end of the main field before the final climb of the day. But it's a risk that he will calculate, the team will calculate. We'll see that a little later on. Looking now to the Ethics Quick Step rider, he's just looking now at the banner of 25 kilometers to go. At 25 kilometers to go now, you can see 54 kilometers an hour there for Michel Golas, looking a little bit further back down the main field. There's no urgency at all now for Team Sky. They're still keeping that tempo going. We will start to see an acceleration coming in this main peloton once we get that little bit closer to the final ascent of the day, and once they start to line up, I think it will start to speed up before we come to the fourth category climb, the Côte de Chabris. And that's when we'll see other teams coming forward to set the pace making. But there's not a lot of riders left in that group. We've seen a lot of riders tailed off over the previous second category climber, the Côte de Sauveterre. Golas, he was a winner last year in the King of the Mountains in the Tour of Beijing. He was also the Polish National Road Race champion back in 2012. In fact, that was his only victory as a professional cyclist. He was second in the Polish National Championships this year, but he's one of the strong guys, and I do think that he's actually moved away like this. He's sacrificing his own chances to force the other riders in that group behind to chase him down, to try and set something up for Rigoberto Urán. Leans around every time he sees the corner. He moves across to the opposite side of the corner to line himself up for the apex, cuts across to keep his pace as high as possible. We saw him just a couple of moments ago at 55 kilometers an hour. We've had some very high speeds recorded in the Tour de France by some of the riders. 107 kilometers an hour the other day by Mark Renshaw, the Australian, the rider who very often is the lead-out man for Mark Cavendish. This is John Degenkolb, number 81. Just behind him, Gianpaolo Caruso. Also moving forward there, Danny Navarro. Navarro also in difficulty in the early part of this stage, trying to stay in contact. It was a very, very rapid start with an average speed in the second hour of the race of 47 kilometers an hour. There's the lone leader, Golas. Well, I still think, Phil, this is a move to entice the other riders in their breakaway to chase him down, to try and set something up for his man Rigoberto Urán. But you know, he is a pretty decent climber. He won the King of the Mountains in the Tour of Beijing.
He did, and he's taking no chances, taking a few risks going down there, because these roads in this area are very tortuous, and you can see now as they start the descent down here. Now this is going to be a very, very good race to the line now, and the sun has come out, and hey, the actual threat of rain appears to have gone away from the top of the climb at Mond as well, where we're sitting. These are very, very hazardous. They remind me, Paul, of the roads in the Alpes Maritimes down by Nice, because they're full of hazardous corners.
Yep, the tricky roads are hard surface as well, and they're not the easiest roads to ride on. They're quite nice if you're riding along at 10 to 15 kilometers an hour, but when you start to get up to 45 kilometers an hour, as we've seen, they are rather heavy roads. Team BMC, well, they're moving to the front, massing to the front now to look after their man, TJ Van Garderen. I'm sure he's thinking about the chances of being challenged by Nairo Quintana, who, as I said a little earlier, Phil, is only 17 seconds behind TJ Van Garderen at the moment. And TJ is dreaming of finishing on the podium.
So Golas, the former champion of his country, Poland, trying to be the carrot here, but they're starting to give him a gap. He's only got 20 seconds on those 19 chases, but the next climb is the small climb at the Côte de Chabris, and we drove over that this morning, and it's amazing they only gave it a fourth category tag in the King of the Mountains, because it was a long, quite steep climb.
I think probably the most difficult thing about the climb is once you go over the top, there's a very tricky and technical descent, and once you start to get into the outskirts of Mons, there's a lot of traffic roundabouts, circles and traffic furniture in the middle of the road where you really do have to pay attention, which is why we'll see the overall. Well, okay, here's an example of what you've got to face up to.
Oof, we just about got round there. Well, he skimmed off there. He used the parapet there as almost a banking on a velodrome to correct this corner, but he's taking these chances. He wants a gap.
I'm joined by Torsten Schmidt from the Katusha team. Torsten, you've got one of the pre-stage favourites, Joaquin Rodriguez. You tempted it all to put the team on the front and chase this breakaway?
No, we didn't do, and we will not do. We had two fantastic stages, and we also have to save some energy for the coming stages, for the coming week. It will be a tough week, and we went into the race. We had two guys in the first big breakaway, and then later on nobody in the break. It's a little bit pity, but we cannot put every day the hammer down, and the guys also should a little bit safe, like I said before.
Looking now for 20 kilometers to go. A little move coming off the front again, and now this is to be expected as well. We're going to see these counterattacks now. 20 kilometers to go for the leader, which is Michael Golash at the moment.
Well, the rider chasing him here is Christian Koren from Cannondale Garmin, and all of a sudden Thibaut Pinot is being forced to do the chasing down himself. He had a lot of teammates doing the pacemaking early on, and keeping a very close eye on him there is Jan Bakelants. A bit further back, Bob Jungels in the red, white and blue. 20 kilometers to go now for these riders. Still the one lone leader. Situation on the road is they're still trying to catch the lone leader who took off a little while back, Michel Golasse, and he's got a 23-second advantage. The main field, well, they have done nothing to eat into that breakaway advantage. It's still hovering on the 6-minute margin. Back with the leader, Golasse.
Hairpin bend, tense moments for the peloton. Rise of the back, just happy to continue to descend and let them all get on with it now. 22 seconds, the gap to the green jersey group, as they are calling it, which is Peter Sagan. And then we go back to 5:55. It is Sky, as it's been for so many days, versus Team BMC. Froome against TJ Van Garderen.
Yes, but sitting just 17 seconds behind TJ Van Garderen in the overall standings, Nairo Quintana, and his own teammate just a few seconds behind him as well. So these guys have got to fight for position, Phil, coming into this final climb of the day, because things could change in the last kilometers of today's stage.
Cool cornering there. They're descending into the town of Balsiège now as we continue a long descent, as we're going into the valley of the Lot now, and the peloton are being led down all of the way by Team Sky. The gap is at 5:54. We're definitely going to see two races now, one for the stage win, and then the favourites hit out at each other on the climb to the finish today. This is the leader,
Michel Golasse, the Polish rider on Ethics Quick-Step. He's just moving into the town of Barjac, and Barjac is the foot of the final, well, the penultimate climb, the fourth category climb, the Côte de Chabris. He made the move on the climb, so he's feeling confident with his climbing ability, and he's also feeling confident, Phil, with the fact that he knows in the group behind he's got a very good climber, Rigobert Urán, who was high up in the overall standings until he had a couple of bad days in the Pyrenees. And I have to say, I think FDJ had tactically a superior advantage because of the numbers that they had in this group, but they seem to have got it all wrong because they haven't got the firepower to organise the chase.
This is Bob Jungels, the champion of Luxembourg in his first Tour de France, this youngster, being seen as the next star from his little country of Luxembourg. Since we've lost now the services of Frank and Andy Schleck, the two great brothers, it looks like it's up to Bob Jungels now to take over the mantle.
Well, there's Chris Froome, but lining up right behind him once again, you've got Team BMC. The first rider there was Daniel Oss. His job is to make sure that TJ Van Garderen is well positioned coming to this final bend. And you know, the final corner at around about 4 kilometers to go for the start of the climb, it's so important to go around that corner probably in the top 10 positions, because the road becomes very, very narrow for the final climb of the day.
Hitting the 20-kilometer banner now for Team Sky and the rest of the Tour de France here. They're going through with a gap of 5 minutes and 46 seconds. Golash is really pushing on there. He's now pushed it up to 26 seconds over his other breakaway companions.
And the fact is, Phil, that 15 kilometres to go, Golash is doing a superb job here, and he realises because of the size of the group behind, 19 men in that group behind, there's not a lot of consistency in the collaboration, and that could give him the advantage once he gets to the next climb, this nasty little fourth category climb, which I think is harder than its ranking, the Côte de Chabris. If he can consolidate there, well, then he's got a very good chance of creating the surprise. The Cannondale rider, Christian Coren, coming forward. And he realises now he can see the chance of a victory of the stage slipping away.
Well, Christian Coren was in the breakaway along with his teammate Andrew Talansky, who had so much bad luck when the breakaway is established. He had a flat tyre and had to slip away behind the race. And he would have been here, no doubt about that, but they were delighted. They still had this rider, Christian Coren, in the break, and he's decided to go alone here and see what can happen for himself. He's in the town of Barjac, and he's now trying to take off after Golash.
Well, I think he was concerned, Phil, and look at the gap that he's opened up already as he moves away from the small town of Barjac. I think he was concerned about the fact that there was no organisation in the chase behind Golash. So he said, right, well, forget about you lot. You're not working well together. I'm going to see if I can bridge the gap on this climb. He's got to bridge a gap of around about 23 to 26 seconds. Once they get over the top of this final climb of the day, they're looking at 9 kilometres to go to the finish.
Good for him. Anyway, you know, Paul, there are marked riders in this breakaway. They're all waiting to make a move, like Bardet or Thibaut Pinot or even perhaps Sagan. And so that's how they make mistakes. Opportunists now put their move in.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah, Richie Port going back to the team car, taking on board drinks, wondering whether or not he's expended all of his energy here this afternoon. I don't think so. I think he's just taking off. You see, because of the heat today, they've been given permission by the race organisation to go back to the team cars to take on board a few more drinks. He'll go up to the front of the main field very quickly and distribute all the drinks from the bar.
It's a little bit of a task to get from that black car at the back to his team at the front when you're climbing these slopes. It's amazing.
Well, it is, because when you take on board 4 bottles like that, Phil, you're looking at around about 2 kilos, which is close to 4 pounds, and it's not a lot of fun to carry the extra 4 pounds uphill.
Well, look at this. Christian Coren hasn't won a bike race since 2012, and that was a stage in the time trials of the Tour of Slovenia, which is his home race. And he's now trying to reach the leader.
Well, I think the big problem, Phil, looking at the third group on the road, this group has many riders who feel that they can win the stage. We talked about Romain Bardet, Thibaut Pinot, Jan Bakelans, Jungels, the young 23-year-old from Luxembourg, and of course Simon Yates, and they're all thinking about their chances of winning, so they don't want to use too much energy at this point because they might need that energy in the last couple of kilometres, and that gives the advantage to the attackers in a situation like this.
Well, Christian Coren is now just 12 seconds behind the rider here, Golash. If those two get together away from that chase, they're going to have to rethink how they're going to do it. Just watch Richie Port here now. A little friendly push there by Mark Cavendish to his former teammate. He's not allowed to do that, by the way. Richie goes up the inside.
Well, Cavendish, Phil, looking rather good on the daylight today, because he's thinking about tomorrow. Once he gets to the next climb of the day, I think he may well just sit up to and limit his losses on a day like this, but obviously go Froome. Well, I think obviously Chris Froome very popular with his lead. But also, I'll tell you what, if these two riders get together, that could be rather interesting, because Coren is still, well, he's locked in at that 10-second deficit. He really has to give it all out now to try and make the junction before they start this fourth category climb.
And it's still not quick wheel change, but look at this. Here we come together at just over 11 kilometers to go. They've got 2 riders now at the front. And that's going to put all the pressure on Team FDJ, because they've done all the pacemaking but haven't allowed for this.
Well, the man in the green jersey of Cannondale, Garmin Coren, is a very good individual time trialist. He's a man who's got lots of firepower, so these two men need to combine their efforts. So, 2-man leading group now. As we pull back, we get a chance to see what the difference is between the 2 leaders and the remnants of the breakaway group that they were in. And it's not very more than 15 to 18 seconds. And on the back foot, on the defensive, is FDJ. Le Danu is doing the pacemaking with his teammate there. They were in that breakaway. They've done all of the work over the last few moments to try and set something up for Thibaut Pinot. 1.9 kilometers to go to the summit of this fourth category climb, the climb of the Côte de Chabris. Once they get over the top of that, they've got 13 seconds advantage over the remnants of the breakaway. But if they can get over the top of this climb with a 15 to 20 second advantage, they should drop down into Monde ahead of the rest of the race and start the climb ahead of the breakaway. FDJ, they've got to try and limit the advantage of the two leaders so that Thibaut Pinot can still maybe jump across a gap of 15 to 20 seconds on the final climb of the day.
Well, this is a very good move by Golash to draw the attention away from his teammate back there, Rigoberto Urán, who is a good climber, although he's had 2 bad days in the Tour de France.
Well, they're stretching out the elastic now because it was down to 13 seconds just a few moments ago, and as they come round the corner here, it's up to around about 17 or 18 seconds, and still the 3 riders from FDJ on the front. But this steady tempo is playing into the hands of Greg van Avermaet and Peter Sagan.
It's welcome to the Lozère region for Laurent Jalabert, who once won the climb up here and is now a television commentator, as we're watching the 2 riders up front, and it's beginning to hurt FDJ and nobody willing to help them. They're going to put it all on the line on the last climb, not this one.
Well, I'm sure once we get to the final climber, the first man who will have to attack is Thibaut Pinot, but you can just now see the youngster Yates in the white and lime green jersey of Orica Green Edge. He knows which wheel he wants to follow when we get down into Monde, and that's the wheel of Thibaut Pinot.
2 riders a kilometre from the top of the climb, and more importantly perhaps, they are going to be shortly 10 kilometres from the end of the race, as Golash continues to ride here, even though he's been joined by Christian Coran of the Cannondale Garmin team. I think Cristiano is finding some new legs now. He's recovered from the chase, but well, look at the closing it down too.
And it's all because of the pacemaking being done at the front by the man who fell off in the early part of today's stage, Jeremy White. He's relayed every now and again by his teammate Le Dagneau, who in fact seems to have disappeared from the front. He's become a spent force after all of the work that he's done so far. 6% is the gradient. Thibaut Pinot has moved right up there. Yates right on his wheel. The difference between these 2 leaders and the rest of the group is not much more than 12 seconds as Golash comes forward. He's relaying core, and these 2 riders are saying, oh, I wish this climb could be over with right now.
Well, Coran can't lift it anymore just now, and Jeremy Roy here, who is now 32 years of age, but he is such a solid leader of that team. Uses all his experience. He's not a bad climber. Once won the King of the Mountains in a 2-day stage race, the Critérium International in France.
Coran is a rider who came to the front in the lime green jersey. The pullback here gives us an idea whether or not Jeremy Roy has got the firepower left, and you can see they're really struggling to nail back that gap. Thibaut Pinot, he has to be patient. He has to wait till the steep part of the final climb of the day if he's beginning to dream of a stage victory for France. Alberto Contador, you can see him out of the saddle there in the yellow jersey. He obviously has not made a move to change his bike, I think, because he thought it was too precarious.
But they're launching, it might well be the professional on the Lotto team here. They're looking over the, it's Cofidis. The rider I was thinking of was Nicolas Eden, I think it is, as he starts to get away. Now, he's a pretty good climber, this man, and he's taking his chance, but don't forget, he's in the main field at 5:53. He's not going to catch up now.
No.
Nice catch there by Christian Coran as we're heading up to the summit. A third of a kilometre remains. This is the chase group. They can see the action ahead of them. Good tactics here, Jens Voigt. Now I think they played a good card, ethics, but it may backfire. What do you think?
Well, they're definitely gonna use these 2 riders to the maximum, and they're not gonna have any chance of going getting a good place here. So they put all their eggs in that one basket, Bruno Thibaut, and hopefully for them it works out. It looks like them 2 not gonna make it, but it's a fast descent going down here. It's a large road, good surface, and they reach, depending on the wind, they reach up to 45 miles an hour. So it's a fast descent, and from the top of this climb, they're going to be basically in 2.5 minutes. They're going to be on the bottom of that next climb already.
Yeah, but Jens, I'm just thinking back. You keep discounting Peter Sagan. As we can see, this steady pace is playing into the hands of Peter Sagan as far as I'm concerned. And if you remember, everybody thought in the Amgen Tour of California, when we went up Mount Baldy, that Peter Sagan was going to get blown away. Well, he hung on, and today's climb is a little bit shorter. So I think Peter Sagan, with this steady tempo they're hitting the climbs, might have a chance.
Well, he might have a chance, but Tour of California was different setup, different situation. Here, there's actually some really good climbers in this group. So, I mean, going up against Bruno Thibault and Romain Bardet in Tour de France shape, it's a different story again. So, I still would go, it favors the climbers.
Well, we're not far away to finding out all of the answers here. Go the French was the banner we've just seen, and they'll be looking for Bardet and for Pinot. It's Karan who's gone over the top for the only point in the King of the Mountains, doesn't need it. 8.4 kilometers to go. Now we're going to race down into the valley. We're going to get a lovely view of Mende itself, and then we'll race right across this beautiful town, and the climb will start right in the center of the town itself.
We're into the town of Mende here. We're at 5 kilometers to go. That's around about 1.5 kilometers from the start of the climb, and they've prized open a few more seconds. It's 13 seconds according to the race radio.
Racing in, and we're looking across at the Cathedral of Our Lady and Saint-Privat as they race it through these narrow streets. Now they look okay now. All the cars have been taken away, and we'll flick to the right. There's a beautiful view. It's built at 1368, that makes it 14th century.
Well, in fact, Phil, it took 99 years to build that church. Rodriguez there, the man who is wearing the polka dot jersey, I'm not sure that he's cracked in a situation like this, Phil. I think he's sitting up and thinking further down the road. It's a question now of conserving energy for the final week of the Tour de France, especially if you think that you're not going to win the stage.
That's all the Tour de France. He's dropped away now. He's not going to catch up with these light riders up front today. Nobody is. It's a question of which one will win. And then we're going to see Chris Froome under pressure. We are coming in at 4.6 kilometers here. We are in the town of Mende. We make a little right flick here, then a left one. We're on the climb. There it is. This is the climb of only 3 kilometers. The finish is not at the top. We run over, small descent, onto the airfield for a sprint. And it's Golash and Karan get there first. These are the chasers. They're now on as well, and it's still Française de Jeu. But Paul, they're going to have to go early, and Thibaut Pinot is going to have to make a move.
Well, they've got to move very, very quickly. I love the way you said there's only 3 kilometers long, this climb. It's a beast of a climb as far as I'm concerned. Bear in mind how much these guys have raced over 14 days. The climb is at 10 to 10.9% gradient, and that's why I still feel that FDJ have made a tactical error here, making all of the pace-making. And look there at Peter Sagan in the green jersey, still sitting there, hoping to survive. And if they ride at a steady pace, he's the kind of guy who, for the effort here of an 8 or 9 minute effort on the slopes of this climb, he could still stay in contact.
Well, he felt he let the team down by losing the stage yesterday, but the man who beat him is sat right behind him in that red and black jersey down there. That's Greg Van Avermaet, and he's in a game with a chance of 2 days, 2 wins.
Moving up there into 4th position is Simon Yates of Orica Greenwich. Behind him, Rigoberto Urán behind him in the red and black jersey. The man who won the stage yesterday, Greg Van Avermaet, and riding this steady tempo, I feel, is playing into the hands of the stronger riders. They need to change the tempo. They need to go out and attack one at a time to try and dislodge guys like Sagan, Van Avermaet.
Well, whenever they keep the speed steady, it plays in the hands of Sagan, because that's what he needs. If you want to drop Sagan, it's got to be a constant change of rhythm. Attack, slow down, attack, slow down. And I don't see that happening yet. So Sagan's sitting comfortably there on 3rd position. And I mean, if Thibaut wants to go, he should make his move soon. Because don't forget, there's 1.5 kilometers flat and slightly downhill. So Sagan can come back on him.
Oh, sorry, Renz, I'll have to jump in because exactly what you predicted has just happened. It looks like it's Bardet who's put a move in down there. Now, Sagan will not be able to lift his pace. I don't think Christian Karan's been swamped here by the move.
Well, it is Romain Bardet. He's been sitting comfortably in that leading group of 20 riders all throughout the day. He's had a teammate alongside him, Jan Bakelants, and these are the changes of tempo that a rider like Peter Sagan will not enjoy. You know, this man finished in 6th place overall in the Tour de France, and he's now getting into a very, very interesting climbing movement. Just coming along there, you can see Simon Yates just a little bit further back.
Well, it's the move we expected. This is the man gaining most in this breakaway. He started the day 17 minutes behind. He, at the moment, is gaining 5 of those back. He's really turned his form around in the last few days. He won at Pralou in the Dauphiné, and we go there in a couple of days' time in the Tour de France. Now he's spread eagle the group.
Watch out for the rider from IAM Cycling, because he's a Colombian rider who hails from a very good country, which produces some of the great climbers of the world. That's Jarlinson Pantano.
Well, listen, that breaker's caught Pinot on one leg here. The whole team were working for him, and he can't answer the attack by Bardet. But others can, and so too can Simon Yates here, who has joined him.
2 Colombian riders in the group. Rigoberto Urán has got in there with Pantano, but also just getting onto the back there is the other AG2R rider, Jan Bakelants.
And Bakelants was 3rd up the hill into Rodez yesterday. The first 3 finishers are in this breakaway. As we're watching now, Sagan, the acceleration has done exactly what Jens Voigt said. It weakens him. As a non-climber, he can't answer to the accelerations. And this is Gautier who's going clear now.
That was Gautier, but Romain Bardet says, mate, you're not having any of this afternoon. I'm the climber in this group, and I want to make the difference. And he gets out of the saddle, but Simon Yates is responding behind. Let's not forget, Simon Yates, the best young rider this year in the Criterium de Dauphiné, which is a big reference race as preparation for the Tour de France.
And he went head-to-head with Bardet, because Bardet won the stage at Pralou. Now, Yates here is trying to give a victory to Orica Green Edge, who've been probably the unluckiest team of the Tour. Only got 6 riders left. Michael Matthews was dropped at the start of this climb, by the way, and we're now watching to see how they can reshape. But this constant stop-go will hurt Sagan.
Well, Pinot has now been put on the back foot. He's a rider from FDJ who needs to respond. He sacrificed his teammates to chase down all of the moves this afternoon, and now he's on the back foot. He's got Rigoberto Urán just up alongside him. Romain Bardet, 6th overall in the Tour de France last year, is the rider looking over his shoulder into the eye spill of Simon Yates. It's a good job he's got sunglasses on, because he won't be able to see any of the feeling that Simon Yates is going through currently.
Well, this is a big move by Yates, and Bardet knows all about Simon Yates here. Meanwhile, let's not forget the second race. The race for the yellow jersey is about to start as they get onto the climb. 3 kilometers to the top. Sky are still in control, but did you notice there, just behind in the white jersey, was Quintana? He's waiting. His team has said he will attack.
It's so complicated to cover this, because we've got 2 races. The race for the stage, and Romain Bardet wants this, and he's got a gap now between himself and Simon Yates. He's opening up the gap, but once you get to the top of this climb, it's not over. You've still got 1.5 kilometers to go. It's a long, long way. Yates looks like he's got a slight gap, but he can maybe recover.
Let's hope so. But Bardet has kept the pressure on there. That's hurt Simon Yates. He's just to the right of our picture. Pinot, it may be climbing his ways. Slow to start, but getting himself back into a rhythm. 11% on this section of the climb now as we watch Bardet. He's trying to put all matters to rights here, this youngster, if he can.
Well, Bardet, 24 years of age, he's got the gap. It's a bit deceptive when you see the gaps on the slopes of a climb like this, because you're looking at almost 11.5% the gradient. I would say that Bardet looks quite comfortable here. He's got the ability to open up a slightly bigger advantage so as he gets to the top of this climb. But looking back now, there are starting to become reinforcements for Simon Yates. Rigoberto Urán has come up, but the group behind Phil further down the road has really dramatically reduced in numbers.
The face licking his lips there, TJ Van Garderen on the right of our picture. He's riding on the wheel of Vincenzo Nibali, but all of the contenders are locked together there. This is Bardet, finished 6th in the Tour de France last year. That's why they thought this year he'd be a contender to win, but he's had so much bad luck. Now it looks as though Yates is in trouble here.
Chasing the lone leader, Romain Bardet, is in 2nd position on the road. The rider there in the Ethics Quick-Step blue and white jersey is Rigoberto Urán. He's actually giving a bit of assistance to Thibaut Pinot, who does not look comfortable. The style that he's using there is just showing that he's having to use the top part of his body to get the pedals over.
1 kilometer to go to the summit. Second at the kilometre will be Pinot, followed by Uran, or the other way around, as we're watching. The gap is at 4:43, but time is of little importance now. This rider going for the stage win.
You might have noticed there, Roman Kreuziger was the rider at the front for Tinkoff Saxo, setting the pacemaker, but Alejandro Valverde had moved to the front end of the main group of contenders. But Roman Bardet looks over his shoulder. He's trying to see what sort of move he can make. Villermoz at the back. In fact, another rider in difficulty, number 82, is Warren Barguil. Quintana makes a move here, though.
Well, he said he would, and now he's going to have to see the reaction from the others. On the right is Nibali, and it's Valverde who's marking Nibali, and there's a little bit of a delay from Froome.
Well, they were all looking at Froome, Phil. They were looking to see, is Froome going to respond in a situation like this? And Nibali said, well, Froome is not responding, so I'm going. Alejandro Valverde has said the same. He's moved across, and Froome has no more teammates left in this group. He's going to have to do all of the pace-making himself.
And Contador is sitting on Froome and not coming by. He's allowing these three to go first, and it's Nibali, Quintana, Valverde, and Contador on Froome's wheel is making Froome chase them down.
Right behind TJ Van Garderen is staying in contact as well. He's on the wheel of Alberto Contador. This is a great battle. It's a pity we're not battling out for the stage victory, because these are all the men who are at the top of the overall standings, the heads of state of this year's Tour de France, while further up the road, trying to make himself a name for France, is Roman Bardet. He's still got a slight advantage. We're looking a little bit further back now, Phil.
Well, Roman Bardet
Steve Cummings is riding back up into third position, I think.
Well, they're all going. This looks like Pinot just here as we come up.
Well, Steve Cummings, Phil, is riding up to Pinot, so that's an amazing performance by Cummings. There is Bardet. He's looking at the King of the Mountains point over the top there. Pinot has moved into second place. Steve Cummings is riding himself up into third place on the stage.
Well, two French riders topped the last climb of the day. Bardet, Pinot, and then it's the British rider Cummings riding for MTN Quebec. Meanwhile, down the slope, 4 minutes back, it is still Quintana in white trying to destroy or get back a few seconds on the yellow jersey. TJ Van Garderen here is being put under pressure and is lagging a little bit.
Well, bear in mind, TJ Van Garderen's advantage over Quintana at the start of the day, Phil, was 17 seconds. Pinot has made the junction at the front as Bardet looks over his shoulder. Two Frenchmen in the lead.
This has been a remarkable recovery by Thibaut Pinot. Remember, he crashed at the start today. He's now getting to what is the easy approach to the line. The hill is done for. We go down and come out, and Bardet may not be able to out-sprint Thibaut Pinot. Now, still this little man here from Colombia is not pulling away, and the constant cadence of Froome is bringing them back.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, he's put Vincenzo Nibali, number one, into difficulty there. He keeps looking down at his gears, and that's always a bad sign. You wonder if you're in the wrong gear. Sorry, mate, I'm having a hard time here this afternoon. But Froome is riding his race. He's just trying to ride himself back. You might have just seen that little hand signal coming from Thibaut Pinot, number 21. He was saying to Bardet, come up forward, mate, you've got to work together, because if we don't collaborate here, we'll get caught by riders coming back from behind. I'll tell you what, Phil, you cannot write fairy tales like that. He came up at the very last moment to get onto the back, and that was a fantastic performance for MTN Quebec. Further down the slopes, though, there's a massive big battle on. Nairo Quintana could be riding up into second place in the overall standings. Alberto Contador, number 41, is on the back foot a little bit here. He's got ahead of him Chris Froome and Nairo Quintana. TJ Van Garderen started the day with a 17-second advantage over Quintana, and he's trying to ride himself back into this race to hold on to a podium position. But, you know, this is a man who's got a very large diesel engine. Once it gets going, he's able to keep it going for a long period of time. Quintana and Froome, Phil, just like it was back in 2013.
And this is Alberto Contador here as he goes to the crowds. TJ Van Garderen behind now, Vincenzo Nibali. This is a small hill when you compare it with the Pyrenees or the Alps to come, but it is doing damage amongst the leaderboard of the Tour de France. Froome has hooked up now with Quintana, who has gone again. Chris Froome looks up, sees him move, then he looks down and just concentrates on his cadence.
Well, this is the special thing about real climbers, Phil. They can attack and attack again multiple times, and that's exactly what Nairo Quintana has done. A little further down the road, you've got two great champions there, locked together. Alejandro Valverde and of course joined there by Alberto Contador, side by side. Contador seems to be struggling, but I tell you what, I still think that Alejandro Valverde is riding a great Tour de France this year, and he is ahead of TJ Van Garderen on the road, and he was behind him at the start of the day. Valverde could also be climbing a lot higher up in the overall standings. Van Garderen needs to find his rhythm. These two riders looking back now to see what sort of damage has been done. Quintana needs to continue. Froome has controlled all of the attacks here of everybody, and he's had to pull himself inside outfield to stay with Nairo Quintana.
Well, Quintana needs 17 seconds. There's no bonuses this far down the race. He needs 17 real seconds to go ahead of TJ Van Garderen in the overall classification. He's got the yellow jersey locked on. No time gains at the moment. As we look here, Valverde, who's joined the back wheel and has jumped Alberto Contador. Contador's got to react to that one, otherwise he'll lose a few more seconds to the man who's already ahead of him in the overall. And this is TJ Van Garderen limiting his losses.
Well, I'll tell you what, also Alejandro Valverde is looking at that third place finish in the overall standings. If he can, he knows he's got to get time over TJ Van Garderen. That's why he's made that very aggressive move there. These are the two big names of the Tour de France this year. The white jersey, the leader of the best young rider competition, Quintana, followed by Froome. We're looking now here to see Alejandro Valverde is coming back.
Well, he's got to gain over a minute on TJ. That will not happen at the moment. But those two up front are doing big damage here, because Quintana tonight is going to move into second place overall in the Tour de France if he maintains this run to the line. And that could be why he's prepared to work here and not worry about the yellow jersey, because Froome has mastered him. Now he wants time, enough time, to get second overall in the Tour. He swings onto the airfield, a left turn, and he'll soon be across the finishing line.
Look at the difference in styles of these two riders. The slightly built Colombian climber Nairo Quintana, but followed by the gangly position of Chris Froome. But these two men, Phil, they're actually starting to show us that the last week of the Tour de France is going to be some incredible battles once we go up into the high spots of the Alps. And Valverde is not too far behind these two.
17 seconds is the gap between Van Garderen and Quintana, so the clock will start as soon as Quintana hits the line. Froome will not lie down even when he's sprinting for lowly places like this. He wants to hammer home a point, and if he don't keep tight on his wheel, Froome will steal a second on the line. And I think they'll have to give him a second for that. It all depends on if it is a whole second. The clock has now started there on the line.
Well, looking down that finishing straight, Phil, I think the 17 seconds is going to disappear here this afternoon. Valverde came in there superbly, I think, with Quintana. Alberto Contador is in, but what is the time now? TJ Van Garderen is in the finishing straight, but I think he's going to drop down a place tonight.
He's literally fighting for every second. It won't keep him in second place overall. He will go down to third as Nibali comes over the line. It is TJ Van Garderen in the distance here as he hits the line, and he will drop to third overall in the Tour de France tonight. What an incredible last climb, but we did promise you it would be. This is the riders. This is Robert Hessing coming in now.
Well, what a battle. Two great races going on there. A battle for the individual stage this afternoon. There's Sammy Sanchez coming up to the finishing line. There's Warren Barguil. He had a difficult day today, not surprising. He's had pretty hard opening couple of days at the Tour de France, but he's still hanging in there tough. He was 11th overall at the start of today, but what a day that has seen. What a day for Mandela Day, when the day that Etienne Kubeka donned orange jerseys in support of Madiba, they came up with the stage victory. And there is confirmation. Cummings for Great Britain and for Etienne Kubeka, representing the continent of Africa, has got himself the victory, 2 seconds ahead of Thibaut Pinot. Romain Bardet in third place at 3 seconds. Uran in fourth. Peter Sagan in fifth place. He's going to get himself some points on a mountaintop finish. Well done, Peter, for that.
Matty, we got the interview, so it's just a bit.
I can't hear it. Can't hear it. Commentary's taking this. Is he still talking?
Well, I'm not sure. I think we might have just lost the interview there with Steve Cummings, but what a brilliant day, Phil. You have to admit, he himself was just starting to say that he knew he wasn't the best climber in that group of riders, but he had to bide his time. And brilliant day, really, for the day when everybody's celebrating Mandela Day.
Yes, well, he got a silver medal in the Olympic Games team pursuit way back in '04. As we look here now at the new overall leaderboard, Paul Quintana got enough time to leapfrog Van Garderen. Valverde in fourth. He leapfrog Contador. And Geraint Thomas goes down into sixth place. Small Hill doing all that damage.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of racing to go. And of course, let's not forget this is an aerodrome, so not surprising at all to see all the helicopters down there. I'm presuming that is a helicopter from Monsieur François Hollande, the President of France, who was on board for what ended up being a fantastic battle today for the victory of the stage and also for a readjustment at the top end of the overall standings. Nairo Quintana, well, he really enjoyed the gradient of this climb, and I think, Phil, what it says is these boys are not finished with their racing to try and win the Tour de France this year, because Quintana and Valverde, I think, can be very, very dangerous.
Stage 15 of the Tour de France. This is Matthew Keenan with you. And for the sprinters, it's Valence, then Paris. But to be in contention today, there's a lot of climbing to overcome. The breakaway senses another opportunity. Stage 15, through the massive Centrale, they depart Mende and make their way through to Valence. It's 183 kilometres, and it starts with a grueling Category 3 climb. The riders will be warming up before the race gets underway. 2 Category 4 climbs and then a Category 2 climb that comes with 50 kilometres to go through to the finish. Warm conditions once again at the start. The temperature's already up into the low to mid-30s. 172 riders on the start line as Rodriguez, affectionately known as Porrito, wears the King of the Mountains jersey. As Chris Froome, although he leads that classification, he has the yellow jersey. A very fast start to the race. At one point we had a breakaway group of 27 riders. The average speed has been in the low 40s. That group has since split, and we're now down to a very select group of 9 riders off the fronts. Thibaut Pinot is here once again, number 21 for the FDJ squad, the man who was second on the stage yesterday. This is Lars back at the rear of the group. There are 2 riders in the move for NX Quickstep, number 117, that's Matteo Trentin, along with the world champion Michael Kwiatkowski. Lars Back is there for the Lotto Soudal team, Simon Geschke for Giant Alpecin, and for Tinkoff Saxo, Michael Rogers is there. And so too is the green jersey. Peter Sagan has made it into the move once again, just as he did 24 hours ago. The peloton at a minute and 32 seconds behind, and you can see for yourself, the picture tells the story. They're moving. So too is the leading group. Ryder Hagedal in the green colours for Cannondale Garmin. Good to see him make the split today. 32 degrees at the finish line, and already feels warmer than that. It's Adam Yates in the breakaway today. It was Simon Yates we saw in the move yesterday for the Orica Green Edge team. Simon finished in 10th position on yesterday's stage, and he looked to be in the running for a little while. He just overcooked the motor a little bit too soon on that climb, trying to maintain the pace of Romain Bardet. Number 11, Jean-Christophe Perrault. He's at 4 minutes and 19 seconds down on the road. And he's in a group that includes Mark Cavendish. Not a position that he's accustomed to, but that horrible crash that he had 2 days ago now, he's still clearly feeling the after effects of that fall. The man who finished in second position overall at the Tour last year. This is Cavendish, number 112. He's got 2 teammates for company and a compatriot from the Isle of Man, Peter Kenyak, the British national champion, is also in this group that are fighting for survival in the Tour today. The large peloton is in front of them. This is a group of just 11 riders. There's still 126 kilometres. And there is the genuine risk of those riders being outside the time delay and getting eliminated from the race. We started with 172 riders on the start line today. We're now down to 171 riders still in the race. Sebastian Langevel, the Dutchman from Canada-Algarman, has abandoned due to illness. But this guy's not abandoning. Maybe we change his name from John Christophe Perrault to John Tough Perrault. And Jeremy Waugh, also sporting plenty of bandages. He crashed yesterday, Jeremy Waugh. That was the rider in the white colours of FDJ. You would have seen quite a bit of Jeremy Waugh on yesterday's stage. Now, he was in the breakaway for the FDJ team, one of 3 riders from that squad in yesterday's move. And he fell, I should say, within the first 5 kilometres of yesterday's stage, but still picked himself up and got in the break. Katusha, they didn't chase yesterday on a stage that suited Rodriguez. They've missed the move today, and now they're chasing. At one point, however, they were at the front of the race. They had Rodriguez in the initial breakaway today, so they'll be disappointed that he somehow missed the split. So they're now all on the front doing the chasing. Ryder Hagedal, Canadian at the back of the group. One of 2 Canadians in the race, the only Canadian to have won a Grand Tour, one of the big 3, the tours of Italy, France and Spain. He won the Giro d'Italia 3 years ago when he beat Joaquim Rodriguez, who is the rider from Katusha that's initiated the chase from the main peloton, but they're losing ground. It's out to 1 minute and 49 seconds, and they're not getting any support. Despite the fact there's still 121 kilometres remaining, the quality of that leading group of 9 riders gives them every opportunity to make it all the way through to the finish, unless another team comes to the front to assist the Russian outfit of Katusha. Thibaut Pinot bouncing back, licking the wounds of what has been a disappointing tour so far. Trying to eavesdrop on the conversation here with Yvonne Matteo, the sports director from FDJ. There's a Category 2 climb that tops out on today's stage with 50 kilometres remaining. It's a climb of almost 8 kilometres in length with an average gradient of almost 6%. For Thibaut Pinot to win this stage, he has to attack on that climb. He cannot possibly win the stage if he comes into the finish with the likes of Peter Sagan and also Matteo Trentin in a sprint finish. Against those guys who are amongst some of the quickest in the world, a climber of the ilk of Thibaut Pinot can't possibly beat them. So it's going to make for a very entertaining day. He's going to need to go long range. He's got Michael Rogers with him for support, and Michael Rogers will try and limit the losses on that climb and then reel it all back in. The hero of the day yesterday, Steve Cummings, now marks himself down as a winner at the Tour de France. And you can see the little logo that he's got on the side of his helmet there. That's for the Quebec organisation, and it's the big logo on the back of his jersey. He also showing that logo with his own celebration, holding up the 5 fingers for the Quebec organisation, raising funds throughout this year's Tour de France to try and provide some 5,000 bikes to school kids in South Africa. More than 500,000 school kids in South Africa spend an hour each way walking to school. So it's 2 hours on foot to get to and from school each day. When they've got a bike, attendance rate is increased by more than 25%. Into the department of the Ardèche. And it is a warm part of the country at this time of year. And welcome to the mountains of the Ardèche. A return to the breakaway group. With Adam Yates taking on the fluids at the back, it's going to be a big task to stay hydrated throughout today's stage. On the stage in Rodez, which was the warmest stage that we've seen so far, that was the day where we saw Greg Van Avermaet just get the better of Peter Sagan. Another second place finish for Peter Sagan. On that day, Richie Porte consumed 14 water bottles. Almost impossible under these sorts of conditions to stay hydrated. Tempers flared a little bit yesterday within Team Sky, and it is perfectly understandable. We've heard about Richie Port being punched in the ribs on stage 10 it was, the first stage in the Pyrenees. He got punched in the ribs with 3 kilometres remaining. Yesterday, Chris Froome reported that he had a cup of urine thrown at him at about 50 kilometres to go on the stage. As we look at Adam Hansen off to the left-hand side of the screen. And then also, we've seen footage of one of the other riders from that team, Luke Rowe.
Hi, welcome on Radio Tour from Race car number 2, just behind the pack. We were expecting a sprinter stage today, but it's been hectic ever since the start. The average speed after 1 hour, 47.4 kilometers an hour, and riders have been dropped. The Cavendish group is way behind the pack, close to 2 minutes. Not sure they will manage to get back into the pack. The heat is on as well. It's 27.5 degrees as I speak. Better than yesterday, but still very hot on the peloton of the Tour de France.
Still Katusha on the front setting the pace, but it's at 1 minute 50 seconds now, the advantage for the 9 leaders. It's quite a contrast, the quality of the breakaway once we get into the 3rd week of racing versus the quality of the breakaway within the 1st week of racing. The opening week on the stages for the sprinters. Listed, it's normally the teams from the Wild Cup presented in the breakaway, but this is an extraordinary move off the front. Ryder Hagedal in the green colours coming through now, a former winner of the Giro d'Italia. Thibaut Pinot in the white colours, 3rd at last year's Tour de France. The reigning world champion is in the move, Michael Kwiatkowski. Lars Bak in the red jersey from Lotto Soudal. He's a former winner of a stage at the Giro d'Italia as well. Michael Rogers in the move, 3 times world individual time trial champion. Peter Sagan barely needs an introduction. For the last 3 years, the winner of the green jersey. This is a high-class breakaway. Adam Yates is in the move as well, and he's been a winner of the Tour of Turkey, 6th last year at the Criterium of Dauphiné, 5th at the Tour of California. So this is one of the best moves we've seen throughout the race, and it will be a big task for Katusha to try and reel them back in. They are on to the next climb of the day, the Col de Bez. This is a Category 4 climb. It's 2.6 with an average grading of 4.4%. No interest in this group in terms of the King of the Mountains classification, but for Peter Sagan in that green jersey, he's already got a 61-point buffer on his nearest rival, Andre Greipel. There is an intermediate sprint with 75 kilometres still to go on the stage. Another 20 points up for grabs there for Peter Sagan. And then there's the stage finish itself. The beautiful department of the Ardèche that they ride through today. The Orica Green Edge car moving up to the breakaway. Had an opportunity to speak with Matt White this morning, the #1 director for the Orica Green Edge team. And he said there is no chance of the race coming down to a day for the sprinters today, and it would certainly be a breakaway that would win the stage. And he was keen to get either Adam Yates in the break or Peter winning the Dutchman. Well, he got Adam Yates in the move, the young Brit. There's the official start of the climb, 2.6 kilometres to go. Then they get over the top of this one, and there's virtually no descent at all. And then they start the next climb of the day, another Category 4 climb. But what a race it has been for that team. And to win yesterday, on the day where South Africa celebrated the birth of the late Nelson Mandela, seems so fitting. Team Sky in the black colours. Today, as they warmed up before the start of the stage, despite the fact that it's around about 32 degrees at the moment, they did need to warm up because the stage started with a Category 3 climb. As they warmed up out the front of their team bus, there were 6 gendarmes providing security for them after all the drama that we've seen over the last couple of stages. Not often that Chris Froome shows much emotion, but he certainly showed plenty of emotion yesterday. Alberto Contador from the Tinkoff Saxo team. It looked as if he might have been heading towards the front to let everybody else know that he was going off to the side for a nature break. Well, Thibaut Pinot, after finishing second on the stage yesterday, the man in the white colours from FDJ, he said there were no positives to take out of the day. Second, after all the work that was done by his teammates, Matthew Ladanu and Jeremy Waugh, it's a complete waste. They were his words as he was not too happy with his own performance and letting that opportunity slip through his fingers. He and Roman Bardet, they really played the game between themselves. They completely lost track of the fact that Steve Cummings was on his way back. Rodriguez himself now going to the front. Not often you see the team leader go to the front to contribute to the chasing. Spotted that flag off to the right-hand side. A tailwind at this point on the climb, which is good news for the breakaway group of 9. No threats in this group to the yellow jersey. Overall is Thibaut Pinot in 17th position at 30 minutes and 57 seconds down. Mum being a little cautious, and rightly so, just holding the kids back on the side of the road. The red colours off to the left as it looks like Rodriguez is not going to the front to contribute to the chasing. He's going to the front to let everybody in the peloton know, okay, we've tried, we didn't get any support, so we're stopping. If you want to bring the break back, you contribute to the chasing. It's extraordinary how well Peter Sagan climbs. This year he went out the winner of the Tour of California, which has got some serious climbs on it. Almost over the top of the Col de Bez. This is a Category 4 climb. There's only 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. And Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman, will collect it. Rogers across the top in 2nd position. It's then Kwiatkowski, the world champion, followed by Sagan, Yates, Geschke, Trentin, back, and then Heyerdahl at the rear of the group. The breakaway of 9 will certainly like the news that's coming back to them from the peloton, with Katusha shutting down the engine and deciding not to do the chasing. Katusha played a pretty clear card on yesterday's stage. They actually stated before the start to anybody that was prepared to listen that they weren't going to chase. Rodriguez has already won 2 stages. They were just going to let the race unfold and see what happens. And if Rodriguez was in with a chance approaching the last climb, then they'd contribute to trying to put him in a position to win stage number 3. But that wasn't the case. So Katusha, they did not chase at all yesterday. And as soon as they got to the bottom of the final climb, Rodriguez, he just simply rode tempo, saving his energy for another opportunity. He was in the original breakaway today, which was a huge group of 27 that has since split down to our select 9 off the front. Rodriguez now will have to save himself for the Alps. So don't be surprised if we see Rodriguez and the rest of the Katusha team fairly soon heading towards the rear end of the peloton and saving themselves for tomorrow's stage into Gap. Tyler Farrar also in this group. The American sprinter from MTM Quebec sits just in front of Mark Cavendish. He won a wonderful stage of the Tour de France in 2011, just about 6 weeks after his close friend Walter Wayland passed away. And when Tyler Farrar went across the finish line, he made the W symbol for Walter. It was an emotional day for Tyler Farrar. A tough day for Jean-Christophe Perrault. This is a Category 4 climb, and this is an enormous crowd. And the large majority of them are so well behaved. Such unfortunate incidents from a minority yesterday with the urine that was thrown at Chris Froome. The fact that Richie Porte was abused on the side of the road once again, added to the punch that he received on stage 10 on the final climb, our first day in the Pyrenees. Luke Rowe had somebody grab the back of his bike and pull him to a grinding halt on that last climb. Sky have really been in the targets of a few of the disgruntled public. Today in the breakaway for Orica Greenedge, yesterday it was Simon Yates. Simon said he simply didn't have the legs. I wonder if it was more to do with a lack of experience yesterday for Simon Yates. The Yates twins, they're only 22 years of age. I'd dearly love to know what would have happened to Simon Yates if he had followed the strategy of Steve Cummings, and in fact just followed Steve Cummings. Cummings said he knew the climb really well, having raced up it a few times at Paris-Nice, and he wasn't capable of climbing with Bardet and Pinot, so he just had to stay really close to that red zone. Tease, flirt with the red zone, but not quite go into it, and then see if he could fight his way back, which is exactly what he did. Yates, Russian blood, big crowd, opportunity perhaps to win a stage. He tried to go with Romain Bardet, a man who finished 6th in the Tour de France last year, went into the red zone, paid the price, cracked and finished in 10th position, but a good result nonetheless and a learning experience. The good news for the grimacing Jean-Christophe Perrault is that the peloton is easing up, and that gives them a chance to reintegrate. Well, I did say that there was no descent before they move on to the next one. The Col de la Croix de Bouzon they move on to now. Short climb of just 1.3 kilometres, and then it is a long descent down to Albany for the intermediate sprint, where Peter Sagan will move his lead out towards the 80-point advantage. You can see Roland Dennis once again, the rider in the BMC colours, with the black nicks on, different to all the other riders from the BMC team, and he's spending so much of this tour out of the saddle. He's got some serious saddle sores, which is why he's wearing different nicks to the rest of the team. Slightly different shape to the chamois, a little more comfortable. Maybe he needs a little bit of the Robbie McEwen butt cream that the former Australian great produces to reduce a little bit of that saddle sore. Watch out for number 117 from edX Quickstep. That's Matteo Trentin. He's the rider who actually gave his bike to Tony Martin on stage 4 when Tony Martin went on to win the stage. But Matteo Trentin is a cagey rider. He's very shrewd. He's only won 3 races in his career. The stage at the Tour de Suisse and 2 stages in the Tour de France. His first one came in a breakaway into Lyon in his first attempt at the Tour de France. And it was his first ever professional win. It was for a big breakaway group, and he beat Michael Albertini of Orica Green Edge. His second stage win came last year, and that was at the Tour de France on a stage where he beat Peter Sagan in a sprint finish. So the guy's quick, and he knows how to read a race. He's in the right breakaway. So if this group was to come to the line, it's no foregone conclusion that it would be a Peter Sagan win. Michael Rogers at the front of this group, driving the tempo. Stage winner last year into Beni de Luchon. And he's 10th attempt at the Tour de France. He finally got a stage victory, and he appropriately so bowed as he went across the line. There is Chris Froome, with the Spanish national champion Alejandro Valverde riding alongside him. There's a great rivalry amongst the Spaniards between Valverde, Rodriguez and Contador. Rodriguez and Valverde used to be the closest of friends. They were teammates for a long, long time. Now they're not quite friends. Not bitter rivals, but they are certainly rivals. Rogers across the top of the Category 4 climb in first position. There was no contest for the 1 point up for grabs. All about maintaining this advantage. 2 minutes and 11 seconds their lead. Here comes the main peloton up this climb. The Col de la Croix de Bouzon. Damiano Caruso is the rider off to the left in the red colours of BMC, as Nicholas Roach comes forward in the black for Team Sky. The other one was Jan Bakelants, and Bakelants said that he's not angry that his teammate Romain Bardet didn't win, but he certainly expected him to. And when he went across the finish line and saw that Steve Cummings was the stage winner, he said it was a real surprise. Steve Cummings was also asked about the performance of the other squads that were in the break, and he said it appeared as if AG2R had no strategy whatsoever. Two of the more experienced men at the back of the group, Lars Back and Michael Rogers, both in their mid-30s.
And we've got a new ride, a new route to try out.
Well, they're not home and hosed yet with a minute and 52-second lead. It's not as if Katusha have really completely called things off. Although with the black colours of Team Sky now going to the front to protect the yellow jersey of Chris Froome, it's a real opportunity for that leading group of 9 to start to extend their lead. They'll take a few more risks out in front, whereas there's no need for Chris Froome to do so. Lars Back, a former winner of the Tour Avenir, when he was expected to be one of the big stars of Danish cycling. Hasn't quite fulfilled the potential that many thought that he had, but he's turned out to be a great workhorse for the various teams that he's ridden for. He's been crucial to so many of the stage victories of Andre Greipel. He's even managed to win a stage in a Grand Tour himself. That was at the Tour of Italy a few years ago. Luke Rowe now coming to the front. And the black colours of the Bora Argon 18 team. This is Sam Bennett at the rear of the peloton, who also sits at the rear of the general classification. He's in last place overall, almost 3 hours behind Chris Froome. Making our way through a very popular rock climbing region in France in the Ardèche. National Park of the Ardèche, which was established in around about 1999 or thereabouts, around about the turn of the millennium, to preserve and develop the Commonwealth of the Ardèche region. And just looking at the landscape, it's not surprising to know that it is very popular with rock climbers. And this statue is to a former athlete and journalist that covered the sport way back in the 1930s and 40s. Not the high mountains of the Pyrenees or the Alps, but they really are a stunning mountain range. So we head through the massive Centrale into the department of the Ardèche, a region which sees a lot of bike racing. Paris-Nice often journeys through here, so too does the Criterium of Dauphiné, and this year the Tour de France. Alejandro Valverde up in the 3rd position, wearing the yellow helmet Movistar as the leaders of the team's classification. They have a 13-minute and 54-second advantage over Team Sky. Steve Cummings, cool, calm and collected at the back of the race. I wonder how he slept last night with that stage victory. Might have been replaying it a few times over his mind, and understandably so. A journeyman, perhaps you would label him as that, as a professional cyclist, 35 years of age. He's been in the pro ranks for more than 13 seasons. He's been a world champion on the track, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, Olympic Games silver medalist in the team's pursuit back in Athens in 2004. Stage winner at the Tour of Spain, but so often he's been on teams to work for other riders. Left BMC at the end of last season to go across to MTM Quebecer to get just a few more opportunities for himself towards the end of his career, and also share all that experience with one of the young growing teams. It paid dividends. The group of Jean-Christophe Perrault and Mark Cavendish and Mark Renshaw and a whole lot more making their way across the top of what is the second last climb of the day. Bad news for the sprinters is the hardest one of the day is still to come. It's Jerome Capel at the back of the group for IM Cycling. Niverti is the rider who is in there for Movistar. Michael Kwiatkowski in the breakaway today. The rumours are that he'll be moving to Team Sky next season. He does at some point want to ride for the general classification, the overall standings at the Tour de France, but for now at least he's just aiming for stage wins. He said because he's started the season, the program is so heavy, targeting the Spring Classics, and he did have success there this year, taking out the Amstel Gold Race. If he does at some point want to target the Tour, he's going to have to back things off early in the year. And again, Lars Back going through that left-hander with the inside pedal down. The normal way of going through a corner is having the inside pedal up. Makes the bike a little bit more stable and reduces any risk at all of clipping the pedal through the corner. And you can see the caution on Lars back as he does come out of that corner. He's drifting from hitting the apex, he's then drifting out wide, understandably so. And that inside leg, the knee, just tinkering off to try and maintain the balance in the right spot. There's Jerome Capel. So we're now back with the group with Jean-Christophe Perrault, and there's confirmation, bottom left-hand corner, the group of Perrault, second in last year's tour. And it was a horrible crash that he had a few days ago on the road to Rodez. His nicks just about came off completely. They were torn to shreds, cheese grater road, and as he went down, you could almost feel the collective groan right throughout the world watching the tour of ouch. Has fought on bravely. Deserves every little bit of credit that he gets. Luke Rowe is the rider at the front with Chris Froome sitting behind him. Key lieutenant over the next few days for Chris Froome, of course, is Richie Porte, who's found it a little bit difficult to deal with all the abuse that Team Sky has been receiving. And in his diary that he's been writing for Fairfax down in Australia, he said, "I'm just a kid who one day moved from Tassie and borrowed money from mum and dad to chase a dream." He's worked pretty hard to fulfill his dream, and Richie Porte is definitely in the process of doing so. He was unfortunate and lucky at the same time yesterday, Richie Porte. He was unfortunate that he punctured. He punctured the front wheel at a speed of 60 kilometres per hour. He was lucky that he managed to keep it upright. Gingerly through those corners back in the peloton. Meanwhile, the leading group of 9, they've got the throttle open, trying to extend their lead. And according to Race Radio, it has split at the front. 4 riders have opened up a little bit more of a gap, and it is Michael Rogers, Peter Sagan, Michael Kwiatkowski and Matteo Trentin who've got a small gap on the other 5. Pino and Back, who we've seen struggling on the descent, a few images of them, along with Geschke, Yates and Hejjedal. A little surprising to hear that rider Hejjedal is losing ground on the descent. Former medalist at the Under-23 World Championships in mountain biking. Lars Back, he really is struggling on this descent. No surprises that Peter Sagan, though, is going forward. Along with Michael Rogers, a man of great experience. 2 days ago on the road, he said to Richie Porte as they were buckling underneath the sweltering conditions, "I'm a little bit too old for this." No, you're not, Michael. A long way from it. Had a fantastic season last year, Michael Rogers. He won 2 stages at the Giro d'Italia, a stage at the Tour de France. He was really refreshed and invigorated after what was a very difficult off-season for him. Had to clear his name. He lived in limbo for around about 6 months. And the safest place to be is at the front. And that's exactly where Chris Froome is. For the question marks about Chris Froome's bike handling abilities, he's put them to rest throughout this year's tour. He was exceptional on stage 4 across the Pavé. Everybody was waiting for the attacks to come from the Italian Vincenzo Nibali, and they did come, but they weren't vicious. Then we saw Chris Froome himself in the yellow jersey try to make a little bit of a move. This is the split at the front. The world champion, Michael Kwiatkowski. It's then Michael Rogers, followed by Peter Sagan, and then Matteo Trentin at the back. You see those corners, no margin for error. Straight into the brick wall if you were to make a mistake. And that will make the nervous even more nervous. And that's precisely what Lars Back is. Rider Hejjedal rattling and rolling, Simon Geschke, Adam Yates, Thibaut Pinot. Let's bridge the gap the easy way. Even on the motorbike it doesn't seem that easy. You could hear the throttle firmly open up as the road straightened up. Conversation between Trentin and Kwiatkowski. Not sure whether to go on with it by the sounds of them. They could probably do with the numbers as they get through into the Valley Road, although having said that, I'm sure that Peter Sagan would like to start the next climb of the day with a head start on Thibaut Pinot. Thibaut Pinot is certainly the best of the climbers in that group, having finished in 3rd place in last year's Tour de France. Lovely old bridge that they make their way across. So 10 seconds the deficit for the former members of the lead group. 5 riders just losing a little bit of ground on this descent. 2 minutes and 5 seconds back to the peloton. Then the group of Jean-Christophe Perrault at almost 8 minutes behind.
Just looking at the back here, this is Tyler Farrer here at the back of the race, and Sebastian Chabanel. A little rain here as we go through Zodiac, and it looks to me as though we've got Tyler Farrer at the back, the American sprinter, and also another sprinter, Sebastian Chabanel, Team FDJ. The wet roads, though, I have to say, Paul, are causing a little bit of concern today now.
Well, they are. It's been a very difficult start to the race. The first hour of the race run off at about 46 kilometers an hour. Initially, 27 riders got clear off the front end of the main field and started to form a breakaway group. But that split down to 9 riders. The 9 riders are currently still clear, with around about 2 3/4 minutes over the main field of the yellow jersey group and all of the other pre-race contenders. But one of the big favourites for the state victory today, Mark Cavendish, has been caught in a group a lot further back. He was dropped with a number of other sprinters at 10 kilometres into the race. So savage was the start. Peter Kenyon from the Isle of Man there, the British national champion in the red, white and blue, he was also caught out in this back group.
Well, they're continuing to take no chase here, Paul. There's no question about them catching up now. It's a question about racing to beat the time limit by the end of the day, I think. They're in and out of these. They haven't actually been racing to any rain, but it's been hitting the roads before they get there.
Yes, for the group at the back of the race here, Phil, they're really going to have to keep a very close eye on the time gap, because it obviously depends on the average speed of the race, but it's going to be between 8 and 9%, which will only give them between an 18 and 20 minute gap that they have to cross the line in after the winner finishes to stay in the race. It's that close, so it's going to be a bit risky for those guys.
On the town of Zodiac at the moment. This is in the Ardèche as we race down here. It possesses here, by the way, one of the youngest volcanoes in amongst the town. And we're hearing on race radio, in fact, the group Cavendish, as they're calling it, has closed a little bit. They're now inside 5 minutes behind the peloton after this long descent. But from what we've seen from the peloton, Paul, they've just been freewheeling down here.
Yeah, they were not taking any risks down that descent, and of course let's not forget that the main field are now lining themselves up to come into Aubenas. But from Aubenas then there's a very long ascent up to the top of the Col de l'Escrinet, and I don't think we'll see the pressure being applied by Team Katusha until they get over the top of that climb and start to line up for the long downhill towards the outskirts of the Valley of the Rhône.
Looking at the peloton as we course down the sides of the River Ardèche in this stunning area of France, as we cross across the country now, heading to Valence. And the good news is that Mark Cavendish off the back today, dropped early on. They've closed in a little bit. They're less than 5 minutes behind now on this long descent, while up front they're lining up now for the green jersey sprint. And that man Peter Sagan has read the move again. There he is on the far side in his green jersey.
Well, he's taking a serious option on winning that competition for the 4th year in a row. Funny how the team owner Oleg Tinkov was so critical in the social media in the early part of the year about this rider's performances, but when you look at his performances, he was getting lots of placings, seconds and third placings, until he came to the Amgen Tour of California. What a dramatic finish he gave us there, winning a 3rd place finish on the final day to win himself a time bonus that gave him the overall victory. And that was a big indication that he was rising up to the top of his form. And here he is at the Tour de France, leading that green jersey competition once again.
Doing very well too. He's a very canny rider. He's read it so well. He's won that competition for the last 3 years, and he's setting himself up on this. This was talked about as being a possible stage for the sprinters, and it's certainly the only one we can call a possible stage. There's no more till the last day, a week today in Paris. It's always been talked about as a mountainous tour, and yet here's a tough sprinter like Peter Sagan out on the hunt every day. We're into Aubenas now, and it's 1.3 kilometers towards the sprint.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the other sprinters do. We know for the moment Peter Sagan is looking very comfortable in the breakaway group, but Greipel, Degenkolb and Alexander Kristoff are in the main field, which is currently just over 2 minutes behind. Mark Cavendish, well, he's not having the greatest of days here. He's well off the back at the moment. It's well, we're getting information between 5 and 6 minutes behind the yellow jersey group. So there's a lot of sprinters, Phil, in the yellow jersey group who'll be dreaming about catching this group of 9 leaders.
Two minutes 3 seconds. It's a little rise up here into Aubenas. It's not an easy sprint for any sprinter, but we'll see if Peter Sagan is taking the wheel of Michael Rogers there. He's got Simon Yates in that white top jersey, but there's nobody normally here who could match Sagan in a sprint.
Well, theoretically, yes, but Phil, if you cast your mind back 12 months to a stage victory of the Tour de France in Nancy, a certain guy who happens to be in the breakaway here, Matteo Trentin, he actually got across the line in front of Peter Sagan in a photo finish, and Trentin's job, I think, will be to try and beat Sagan up to this, to try and reduce the number of points he gets. But look at the wind-up now coming from Michael Rogers on the front.
Well, Matteo is the rider just in our camera now, on the back wheel of the white jersey there, so he's being led out by his teammate Kwiatkowski. We'll look at this. It's becoming a formality. Rogers is just the rear guard. He's the teammate of Sagan. Nobody's bothered. Sagan gets 20 points. His teammate even gets to the 18. So that was pretty easy, and that's increased the overall lead at the moment. Remember, there is a sprint at the back for 10th place, and there's points available, first 5 there. Jens, now it's crucial now. Are they going to go on and try and win the day, or what do you think is going to happen?
Definitely they're going to go on and try to win the day. As I say, it's 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. They're going to get caught by Katyusha. I make up my mind here. They're going to get caught, but they're going to keep going because, hey, once you open that box, you might as well go to the very bottom of it. So once you're committed in a break, hey, you might as well go full gas. And I think Peter has in his mind, like, okay, I got 23 points here, and I might get a few more points at the finish line if we survive this stage. Saying that, Peter is such a legend that even if they would get caught, Peter is still going to be top 5 on the stage after being a breakaway, getting caught, and he's still going to be in the top 5 in the break. That's how crazy good he is.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that because there's still 74 kilometers to race yet. The beautiful crowd here, remembering the halcyon days when the race finished here, and now they're seeing the Tour de France again pass by.
9 riders in the leading group. You've got Pinot, Rogers, Sagan, Adam Yates and Ryder Hagedal, but the other riders in the breakaway group, Lars Bak is a teammate of Andre Greipel. Simon Geschke is a teammate of John Degenkolb, and then the 2 riders from Ethics Quickstep, well, they will probably now have to work in that leading group because they're probably figuring out that Mark Cavendish is not going to be one of the sprinters. And as you can see, Giant Alpecin have also decided now that they're going to try and lead this out because Degenkolb is looking for a few points, and not far away from him is Andre Greipel.
This is John Degenkolb at the front. He's got Greipel on his back wheel. 2 Germans going for it here. Greipel checking out what's going on as they're coming up to line, and they're not bothering to contest those small points, Paul. So Degenkolb is best of the rest. He's in 10th place.
I think we will see a bunch sprint this afternoon, of course, without Tyler Farrar, the American, and without Mark Cavendish.
This is the descent away from Aubenas. All the traffic comes from the right here if the road wasn't closed, and shortly you will leave the main road and disappear down the side road, which will be the D578B. And superb roads for cycling, as always, once you're off these main N roads, which is Route Nationale. Looking at the tail of the peloton as they swing away from Aubenas, briefly onto the N road that goes round this lovely city. They will turn away into the lanes again imminently now. There they go. The best road to the finish is straight on, but we're going a little bit longer as we head now towards, we're seeking out the Col de la Lecrinée. This is still Team Katusha setting the pace. They have said they want to keep this breakaway at 2 minutes or less, and they're doing that. And then they're waiting to see what happens on the climb coming up. And of course, if Christoph cracks, then they'll turn off.
Well, I don't think they'll ride that hard once they actually get to the slopes of the climb. They're riding here because this is the flatter part of the course before they start that second category climb. I think they'll climb the ascent at a fairly steady pace and try and keep numbers together at the front end of the main field. Once they've gone over the top of the climb, that's when they'll start to get themselves organised. But if you look at the long tail of riders here at the back end of the peloton, it gives you an idea of just how hard Team Katusha are riding.
Yes, and how hard the brake is riding, because they're holding it. Brought down a little bit, 148. We're over the Pont d'Aubenas now, the bridge there, as they continue to head towards the start of that climb. News on the Mark Cavendish group is 8 minutes 2 seconds behind the leaders, so they're not letting them go, they're holding on, and of course if they can keep a gap somewhere around that, they're well in the time limit at the finish, and that's probably all they're concerned about right now. Up to the leaders here.
I think Peter Sagan in the green jersey there, Phil, will be very happy that he's got Michael Rogers up alongside him. It's always great in a breakaway situation like this to have a teammate, somebody who you can rely on. And everybody knows that Michael Rogers, a former 3-time world champion in the individual time trial, is a great powerhouse to have up alongside you in a situation like this. Ravitaillement, a little bit of the French lesson starting once again. This is the feeding zone, and all of the riders taking on board these bags, which in French are called the musettes. And in those bags they'll have a couple of bottles and plenty of food, usually highly calorific food when it comes to this point, whether they're energy bars or even energy gels.
Important to keep hydrated and not getting hungry on these long days of the Tour de France, and the heat is what causes the biggest problems to the riders as well. Now we'll see what the tempo is like now, Paul, because this is quite a hard climb, 15% at its steepest point.
It is a difficult climb, and I think that's why we'll start to see the gap go up for a fraction over the next 7.5 kilometers, because the leading group will continue to ride at their steady tempo, while in the main field behind, as they go past the 7.9 kilometer to go, that's 5 miles of climbing, Team Katusha are going to slow down a fraction. They don't want to blow the race apart at this point, because they want to have a bunch of allies over the top of the climb, because we've got a very, very long descent over the top of this Col de l'Escrinet, around about 20 miles downhill, and they'll need a lot of firepower to chase back the breakaway.
Well, we're getting high above the river. That's the Ardèche again down there.
Yes, magical backdrop of the Ardèche. That is the Cirque de Jean just down in the middle there, one of the marvels of the Ardèche. This area is renowned for its walking and swimming, and in fact there are around about 320 climbing routes on this climb, and over the top you'll find incredible lavender and wild sage. You can actually also find the ocellated lizard here, and it measures up to 60 centimeters in length, but it is very much renowned for its outdoor adventure. And as we saw just a few moments ago, plenty of people actually use the Ardèche for kayak and camping, so you can meander down the river and pull off in the evening and find a nice little campsite. France has so many different beautiful backdrops to offer. Katusha, and not a surprise at all to see the green jersey of Thomas Voeckler moving to the front as well, because we've been talking a lot about the sprinter Alexander Christophe from Katusha, but also the Europcar team from France have a very good sprinter, Brian Cocard, and he would be in with a chance if they can pull it all back together down towards the end. Just a quick look down there, we get a little view of St. John's Tower, La Tour de la Reine Jean. It's a medieval watchtower which was built to survey the road between Uzès and down towards Aubenas, and its name is given to the famous Jean de Balazoc, who was the lady of the manor here in the late 16th century, a woman of an extremely strong personality, who's reputed to have made the tower as her bachelor apartment, apparently. That tower has been restored and is now privately owned. Back with the main field, you can see a little bit of assistance coming forward now, and it's all different tactics for different teams. The Team Sky have absolutely no reason to chase that leading group of 9 riders. The closest rider to Chris Froome in the overall standings is Thibaut Pinot, and he's only 17th place overall, but 30 minutes and 57 seconds down. The closest after that is Michael Rogers at 49 minutes. So for Team Sky, it's almost a day off, riding towards the front end of the main field, keeping themselves out of danger, keeping a very close eye on how the breakaway is developing. But for them, they know other teams have their own objectives to make sure that breakaway doesn't survive on today's stage.
Ryder Hejjedal at the front here, the only Canadian to have won the Tour of Italy, and a great bike ride. He had a tough ride in the Giro this year, but he got better and better and better, and he's brought that form to the Tour de France. He's leading them up here. The relaxed, casual pedalling style, a very nice pedalling style of the world champion there, Kwiatkowski, but he is fragile, Paul. He's had many breakaways, but towards the end he's cracked.
But he's only 24 years of age, and to win the World Championship at 24 years of age is already quite an impressive reference. I think he's one of those riders who's trying to learn and figure out what he can do in the future. This is a long way down the road now. We're starting to look, well, they're still locked in. They're not losing that much time. They're all
holding.
As you can see, they're now riding in, like, it's almost like a training ride relay here. They're all doing a little bit of a turn at the front because they realize they've got to work together to make sure they don't get eliminated. And yes, I tend to agree with what Jens Voigt said a little earlier on. They shouldn't get eliminated, but they need to keep working like this over the rest of the race to limit their losses.
They can't relax at all. They're heading towards the start of the climb of the Col de l'Escunay, where everybody else is on that climb at the moment. They're now in the time of Vesso. So it's a couple of kilometres to the start of the climb. Just looking at the face there, Jean-Christophe Perrault, the runner-up last year in the Tour de France, had that nasty crash. He's suffering. You can see it in his face, sitting right on the nose of his saddle. This day he just wants to get away, get it over with. He's 2 days away from a rest.
Well, Mark Cavendish has said on many occasions you can't call Peter Sagan a sprinter, and that's the rider in the green jersey there. He's the leader of the green jersey points competition, normally regarded as the competition for the sprinters. But Peter Sagan is one of those riders who, yes, he can mix it in the bunch sprints, but he can climb. He can do so much on his bike that that's why he leads this competition. He's Mr. Versatility, I would have to say.
Joined by Matt White, Sports Director at Orica Greenedge. Matt, you've got one of the Yates brothers in the breakaway. It's Adam today. Can this move survive? It's really touch and go.
Yeah, it is. The interesting thing will be who rides tempo on this last climb of the day. That will be the key factor, whether the break goes out any further or comes back. And then obviously we've got a good hour and a bit of racing off the top of this climb.
And Lars Bak has all the reasons in the world not to help because of his teammate Andre Greipel. He sat at the back of the race here, excuse the pun, but he is a good rider. He won a stage of the Tour of Italy back in 2012. Driving the breakaway here, gap is 1:49. We're heading up towards the summit of the Col de l'Escunay. It's still a little way to go. Beautiful area of France and a road we very along, and a huge crowd here welcoming the Tour.
Yes, they are, and a nice viewpoint for everybody here at these wonderful limestone craggy outcrops.
Well, you get some idea there, Paul, just how fast they really climb up these mountains.
Well, it just gives you an idea as well to indicate riders have certainly not given up. We see Thomas Voeckler coming over the top in first place, but also being attentive over the top of the climb. Alberto Contador, Alejandro Valverde. We're a long way to go from the finish. They're paying attention at the front end of the peloton.
Thomas Gekent, good climber, sat last man here, 73. They've gone over the top, a 1:25, the official time coming from the course. We're showing 1:24 at the moment. Now that is not big enough, I would suggest.
I don't think it's big enough. 120. Once we start to get the firepower of the teams of the sprinters organised, we're now, Phil, looking at a long descent. It's not a steep descent, but it's one where the riders will feel that they can push the average speed in the main field to speeds approaching 35 to 40 miles an hour, and they won't really be hurting quite that much to keep the speed high, so they will start to really eat into that. The leader's speed currently around about 35 miles an hour. I would think the main field will be close to 37, 38 miles an hour. So shortly, I think they'll get themselves organised, and this group is not going to get the win from the leading group of 9.
Well, they're already knocked off 8 seconds as they tipped over the top. The peloton speeding at just on 50 miles an hour as they go down the mountain, nearly 80 kilometers an hour. And these roads, they don't have acute turns. They can hit the high spots here.
Yep, it's not really a technical descent here. As you say, Phil, a very fast descent, and that's why we've seen that average speed in the main field now starting to kick up to around about 50 miles an hour. And most aggressive ride of yesterday, Perrichon, you spotted him with the red number on his back. Well, he's having a hard time just staying in contact. And as you can see, a few moments ago, it was all the teams of the sprinters up at the front end of the main field. Now it's the overall contenders starting to wind it up.
Well, the clock is in the descendancy here as they now are going to open up everything, because the sprinters will now be telling their teams, look, we can win this, let's go. And all the leaders, they're all in the pack right there. All the men who've battled to open up the time gaps at the top of the leaderboard. Chris Froome, Nairo Quintana, TJ Van Garderen, Valverde and Contador, the first 5 riders in the race.
Yeah, but as you can see, once they get to any kind of descent, anything that might be at least perilous, you can see Team Sky come to the front of the main field. Now there's a little move from the leading group here, because just going around the corner, that looks to me as if Matteo Trentin, Phil, has just slipped the leading group of 9.
Well, that's a cheeky move if he has. And there he is up front.
Taking chase after him, Mickey Rogers, followed immediately there by Peter Sagan.
Well, we're on the descent and we go down through the town of Privas, and that's where we have a choice of ways, but our boys will go right through the middle on a very small road. And this is the site of Perrault driving at the front here after his crashes, heavily bandaged, suffering like you would not believe, and is determined not to give up the Tour de France after finishing second last year.
This is also the group that Mark Cavendish, Daniel Tekla-Heimenot are in as well. They're losing huge chunks of time on this day. Because of the speed of the start, they ended up getting left behind after just 6 miles. Jeremy Roy is the other rider, just over to the right-hand side. He was one of the riders who was in the breakaway on yesterday's stage. Just goes to show, you know, it's very much like that bank account I keep talking about with energy. If you use too much, you've got to go into the red zone the following day to top up the energy levels once again. And of course this man has been right deep into the hurt locker, and that of course is JC, they call him, Jean-Christophe Perrault, former Olympic silver medalist in 2008 in the mountain bike before switching across to road racing.
This is back up with the leaders here, and they're still chasing Trentin down that climb, and this is the peloton, and they've knocked off a lot of time. We're heading to a minute now.
Yeah, but this is interesting because all of a sudden it's Movistar have come to the front in those dark blue jerseys with the lime green M on the top there. You know, they're not going to give this race any opportunity that might present itself is worthwhile grabbing. So with the new technology available, we get a chance to see the average speed with Peter Sagan in the leading group. He's going downhill here at 54 kilometers an hour. Alexander Kristoff, sorry, in the group behind, he is closer to 60. But this is interesting to see on, again, a stage where at this point of the stage it's not strategically important for a move to come, that Movistar have moved to the front end of the main field.
So the riders here as we course through the gorges now as we head down to Privas itself. This beautiful town here tucked away, and the peloton are really charging. Now we expected this, Paul, we expected the peloton to continue. As you look down on the Chateau du Voguet, And Paul Sherwin is an expert on this particular chateau, right, Paul?
I certainly am. Goes back to the 12th century, of course, although it was reinforced in the 14th century. It became the property of the family Gosse, who then handed it over to the Rochebourg du Bessay. It was transformed with the addition of the 4 towers that you can see on the outside. It really is quite remarkable the way many of these historical monuments in France have been preserved. It was refitted, by the way. I'm not sure if they're talking about the kitchen, but in 1603 by the Vogue family.
Yeah, it is a private historical monument and absolutely magnificent. As we go back to the Tour de France here, the gap is now ringing at 1 minute here. Movistar pushing on the descent, stretching them out. They're going to catch that breakaway for sure. As we're catching up with the leader on the road now, which is Matteo Trentin. He's going to give it a good go, but he's set himself an awful long way to go to the finish. But hey, he's going to do most of it downhill.
Well, this is the sort of day when it's not that crazy to go on the attack with 48 kilometers to go, because he's got 20 kilometers downhill to, first of all, he goes through the town of Privas, then he goes down into the small town of Poussin, and that gives him 20 kilometers downhill. And if he can keep the pressure nice and high and they don't organize the chase behind him, he could go down into the valley of the Rhone with a 30-second or a 45-second advantage. And just looking at his style here, he's looking quite comfortable on his machine. And he's got the advantage, Phil, because in the group behind him, he's got a teammate, and his teammate can get an easy ride. And that's, of course, Michael Kwiatkowski, the world champion. And they must have talked about this.
This is a lovely little town. We're coming in just on the outskirts of Privas now. As we continue to race on, there'll be a huge crowd down here as we get down. This is the group he is left behind for the moment, and there's somebody else gone off the front here.
That, I think, was Simon Geschke. It was a dark black jersey. And, oh, gee,
that's a bit tricky. Kwiatkowski showed us a new style of bike riding there.
Yeah, but did you see Peter Sagan, how quickly he leaped across that gap there? He's such an incredible bike handler. As we there's Kwiatkowski. He'll sit here. There's Peter Sagan. He's just keeping an eye on affairs. Lars Bak doesn't want to get caught out. It's his job, number 72, to make sure the breakaway doesn't go clear of the front end of the main field, because he's thinking about reinforcements coming from the back group and, of course, from Andre Greipel.
Well, they're still pushing on. We can show this again here. It's pretty good.
Very good bike handling.
Terrific.
I think when they looked over there, Kwiatkowski with his landing, he was looking to the other riders in the breakaway to say how many points for difficulty in that one. Well, I give him 9.8 out of 10. That was a fabulous move as he just lifted the bike smoothly across in a diagonal distance to get himself back safely into the tailwind of the rider in front of him. Back now with the leader. Now this is Matteo Trentin. Won a stage last year in the Tour de France and in the Tour of Switzerland. One of the youngsters on the squad, and they're not actually responding here. Just a little bit further forward is Simon Geschke. The gap is 1 minute and 15 seconds back to the main field, but there's no organised chase here now. That could be rather interesting. Looking here at Thibaut Pinot. Pinot really had an ideal preparation this year for the Tour de France, and back to the calvaire, as the French would call it, of J.C. Perrault. Just at the back is Jeremy Waugh up alongside him. A lot of the riders in this group having a long, hard day in the saddle. There is Peter Kenyuk, just riding in front of the South African flag a few moments ago. Daniel Tekla-Heimenot, and of course this is a group of Mark Renshaw and Mark Cavendish, but they're more than 10 minutes behind. Phil, in that leading group of 9 riders, Team Ethics Quickstep had 2 riders present. One, the world champion, Michael Kwiatkowski. Matteo Trentin, a winner of a stage in the Tour de France last year. I think this is an ideal place for him to make the move, because, as I said, it's downhill for about 20 kilometres. And although he's on his own, he's probably expending about the same amount of energy as the riders in the group behind, because of the fact that it's downhill for a long, long period. He's trying to build up a lead until he gets to the bottom of this climb, and then he'll be in the valley of the Rhone, which then rides up towards Valence, and he should pick up a tailwind. So there's a good chance of creating the surprise. The chaser just a little bit further up there is Simon Geschke, the German rider from Giant Alpecin. And then a little bit further back, you can see there's no real collaboration or organisation in the chase in the 7 riders in the group we're looking at here.
But they're certainly not going to give the bunch an easy chase back, even though they're 1 minute and 10. They have been down to 1 minute almost, and they're pulling away again. Now they're still continuing to race towards the finish on the fastest expected time today, so they really haven't hung around. The organisers have 3 expected arrival times, by the way, because this is to make sure that everybody, police particularly, have the roads all shut down. Well, this is the group going over the top of the Le Crinet, and it's timed on my computer at 12 minutes and 16 seconds. They still need to get a move on. They can't afford to lose too much time, Jens.
No, definitely they cannot afford to lose much more time. They got to work a little bit, and I guess in the end, the whole group back there, they're gonna sit in the same boat going, okay, none of us wants to be eliminated, you know, within a week before Paris, so let's work together, you know, and let's get this thing moving to the finish line. I mean, after they come across this hilltop, it's downhill and flat for the last group as well, and all you have to do is just keep the same speed like the first group, and I'm convinced absolutely that they're gonna make it. But yes, it's no present, it's no pleasure cruise today.
Outskirts of Poussin, and that is not far away then from the valley of the Rhone, and by that time I would expect to see the main field right on the tailcoats of the remnants of the breakaway. And there's a number of teams now are quite happy to come forward and work. Europe Car is one of those. They're probably thinking about their man Brian Coquart, and they're about to get caught now, the group of Sagan, leaving only 2 riders in front.
Well, just take a look at this now. 58 seconds. Gescher's back, but rider Hejjedal has replaced him on the attack. He's still out front, chasing Trentin. But here comes Europe Car. They've got a good sprinter in Brian Coquart, and they have to count fast and say, hey, there's still 2 guys missing in that group as they continue to drive the speed. 1 minute, 1 second. As we look across the spread, Hejjedal is 16 seconds in front of those riders in green now.
Well, the 1 minute, that corresponds at these speeds, Phil, to actually less than a kilometre, the distance between the lone leader and the main field, because they're probably riding down here pretty close to 60 kilometres an hour on the downhill parts of the course. A fairly laboured style here for rider Hejjedal, but he's a powerful rider, and he'll be churning a massive big gear here. And he is a rider who's got a great pedigree behind him, as you said, winner of the Giro d'Italia. And he finished 5th overall in the Giro d'Italia this year, and really he got stronger as the race went on.
He had a great finish, and for that reason he came to the Tour de France. Now he's settling into this race as well. I don't know, he looked over his shoulder possibly as he just did. They're now telling them here from the car that all of your breakaway partners are back in the pack except Hejjedal. He's still holding 55 seconds, 38 kilometres to go, normally not enough, but he's going to make them chase him down.
So, well, it's going to be difficult, though, because as they now begin to exit the small town of Flaviac on that river Ouvèze, they have a 3/4 of a minute advantage over the main field, which contains 4 very good sprinters. Sagan, Greipel, Christophe, all the big men, all the big sprinters looking for the stage victory are right here in this group.
Well, they've come together, Paul. 36.8 kilometres to race. Sagan gone to the back of the peloton for the moment. Now 2 versus the rest.
Well, still, it's going to be a tough call there, you know, and the only way they would survive is if in the main field behind they stop the organisation. But there's so many big teams coming forward now, Phil. No, it's not raining. I think that's just a little bit of water off the shoulders of Matteo Trentin. And just having a look here, Sagan has had a mechanical problem. Well, yes, hello, give me a bike.
Bikes or whatever's happened, his bike's broken. Well, that happened just as he was caught. That's amazing. Is that a souvenir for the cameraman? Maybe. Here we go.
Well, that didn't seem like too much panic. I think there was a planned move. Sagan back, used the convoy of cars to pick himself up, looks over his shoulder to see what's happening. The change of the bicycle happened extremely quickly there. He keeps looking back to make sure he's got plenty of assistance. He's like a seasoned professional, Peter Sagan, although he's only 24 years of age. It really is a remarkable character, and he rides with the experience of a man who seems to have been pro for years and years. He turned professional back in 2009, and he's still, well, in fact, he's actually 25 years of age. He turned 25 on the 26th of January, which is why he still qualifies for the best young rider competition. He's lost a lot of time in that, but now what he's thinking about is trying to win this green jersey points competition for the 4th year in a row. Just trying to figure out if that bike change was a bike change that was pre-planned. Keeps looking over his shoulder. He's waiting for the mechanic, waiting for his own team car to come up alongside it. The two leaders now, Ryder Heyerdahl and Matteo Trentin, well, they have got a 30 seconds advantage over the chasers as they now go through the small little town of Saint-Julien-en-Saint-Alban. Saint-Alban is a name that's attached to many of the little villages around here, going back to the wars of religion, reducing a lot of the regions of Saint-Alban to ruins. But there are a lot of caves. Now the teams have all stopped here. You've got now waiting for him, Tossato and Valgren. They've been given the nod to sit back and actually wait for Peter Sagan to pace him back into the main field. Now I think Sagan might have changed to a bike, a slightly different bike for the final part of this race. Made in the Ardèche. Well, this is certainly right in the heart of the Ardèche region, and I just keep wondering, Phil, whether that was a planned bicycle change there by Peter Sagan.
It was apparently, Paul. While I've been away, I've been checking, and it was a planned bike change, and apparently the Tinkoff team have been doing it on a daily basis when they've worked out what terrain lies ahead.
Well, that's the way I think the sport is going to evolve. They're very much like Formula One. You decide which tyres you need for what conditions. And Peter Sagan here, now that the fact is that he's not in a breakaway situation, he realises that this race is going to come down to a bunch sprint, so he probably wants a slightly more rigid machine for the final few kilometres. Not a surprise, though, to see this organisation. I don't think those two riders have got very much of a chance to survive, because look at this. You've got Lotto Soudal doing the pacemaking with Europcar, and, of course, right in there as well, Team Katusha.
Yes, and the
Switzerland in the Furka Glacier on the slopes of the San Gotthard Pass, which is very often nicknamed as the water tower of Europe. There is the Rhone, and just about to cross over. This is the small town now of Pouzin. They actually just went by a beautiful Roman bridge with a single arch just over to the right-hand side. And now they take